Chapter 670 Black Martial Artist. Mystic Heaven Lord. Auctioning the Kingdom Token. After Zhou moved the Dark Martial Lord out of the group chat, the Military Industry Lord was the first to come out and admit his mistake. Military Industry Lord. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. I didn't know him well. I just heard of his reputation in the past, and know that he's considered one of the top lords on the Cerulean planet. Military Industry Lord. Later on, a friend of mine took the initiative to look for me after he found out about the Kingdom Token. He said that he wanted the Dark Martial Lord to join him. I owe this friend a favor. After thinking about it, I felt that the other party could be considered a top-notch lord, so I agreed. I didn't expect this Dark Martial Lord to be such a fool. The Military Industry Lord was also cursing in his heart. It's fine if you're fucking stupid, but don't fucking drag me down with you. At this moment, no matter how good his temper was, he could not help but feel anger and even killing intent. During this period of living in the High Continent, he was no longer the innocent and honest weapons development techies he used to be. Lord of the Blazing Sun, it's fine. Just treat it as a joke. Lord of the Blazing Sun, tell me about this guy. I want to know what abilities this guy has. His words are so annoying that he can still live until now. When the Military Industry Lord heard this, he immediately knew that his chance to show off had come. Military Industry Lord. Your Majesty, this Dark Martial Lord is a lord who bullies the weak and fears the strong. He usually lords over his territory, but the group of Dark Martial Artists under his command are indeed quite powerful. Military Industry Lord. It's said that the Black Martial Artists under his command have a special method. They can freely enter and leave the Scarlet Fog. Moreover, they have grasped the ability to weaken the enhanced strength of the fog monsters at night. Military Industry Lord. This ability is quite rare. It's said that he even used his Black Martial Artist soldiers to befriend some kingdom-level lord factions. To put it bluntly, he's working for those native lord factions. Military Industry Lord. If nothing goes wrong, this should come from his lord talent. Zhou's eyes lit up. There was actually such an innate ability. He immediately thought of the refined flame Scarlet Legion that was coming tomorrow. After the other party arrived, there was a high chance that they would attack his kingdom at night. If he could also master this method to allow his soldiers to avoid the threat of the Scarlet Fog, the chances of his soldiers surviving in battle at night would definitely increase greatly. Zhou thought for a moment and typed, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Do any of you know the location of this Dark Martial Lord's territory? When the Military Industry Lord, the Dragon Lady Lord, the Overlord Lord, the Undead Lord, and the Mystic Heaven Lord saw Zhou's message, an idea appeared in their minds. Could it be? This guy wanted to deal with the Dark Martial Lord? Thinking of the compass of the soul of vengeance, everyone felt that it was really possible. Mystic Heaven Lord, I know. Zhou looked at this lord's name thoughtfully. Thanks to the fact that he usually knew how to surf the world channel when he was free, he knew some famous Cerulean planet lords. This Mystic Heaven Lord was one of them. It was said that this person's lord talent was the White Platinum Tier Lord talent, Immortal Sect Protection. The effect of this lord talent was, within his territory was a cultivation sect, the Mystic Heaven Sect. During the aptitude test, the subjects in his territory had a higher chance of awakening an immortal cultivation spiritual root, and being taken in by the Xiantian sect to be an immortal Dao Qi practitioner. This was nothing. At most, the territory would have one more rare class change opportunity. But the key was, the Mystic Heaven Lord, who had the lord talent of the Immortal Sect Protection, actually had extremely high cultivation aptitude. It was said that his cultivation aptitude was so high that he even had a chance of touching the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, True God Tier. In the future, this aptitude even alarmed the upper sect of the Black Heaven Sect in the Immortal World, the Profound Heaven Immortal Sect. There was even a true immortal, low-tier deity from the upper realm who took him in as his disciple for the time being. Then, he left behind a bunch of immortal cultivation resources and left. This matter quickly caused a huge commotion in his territory. It was said that the average loyalty of the subjects in the entire territory had increased by a few points. After this matter was sent to the World Channel, The cerulean planet lords on the World Channel were naturally envious and jealous. Some lords even joked. This mystic heaven lord had forcefully made a white platinum tier lord talent feel like a legendary tier lord talent. Even though it was a little exaggerated, it could be seen how high this person's potential was. Lord of the Blazing Sun, how did you know? Mystic Heaven Lord. My territory is not far from this guy's territory. Previously, when I joined the Mystic Heaven Immortal sect, this person specially came over and wanted to buy my Immortal Dao cultivation technique at a low price. After I rejected him on the grounds that my sect did not allow it, this guy thought that I was unwilling to sell it to him. He flew into a rage out of humiliation and often sent troops to attack my territory. Mystic Heaven Lord. My sect can't interfere in the battle for the title of Lord of all races. I had no choice. In the beginning, it was very difficult for me to deal with this guy. Later, I mastered some Chi practitioner protective techniques and learned some array formations. The situation improved a little. After that, I established the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance and had the support of a large number of cerulean planet lords. That's why this guy didn't dare to attack me. Mystic Heaven Lord. If your majesty has the intention to deal with this guy, I'm willing to lead the way for your majesty. Zhou was deep in thought. He naturally did not believe everything this guy said. Unfortunately, it was not in reality. Otherwise, he might be able to listen to this guy's inner thoughts to differentiate between truth and falsehood. At this moment, the military industry lord sent him a transaction. Military industry lord. Your majesty, I just asked my subordinates. What this Mystic Heaven Lord said is true. He has a long-standing grudge with the Dark Martial Lord. The two alliances have even fought many times. Zhou did not reply. He typed in the group chat. Lord of the Blazing Sun, let's private chat later. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Alright, there are only the 4 of you left. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Let me make things clear first. As I only have 3 kingdom tokens now, one of you will not be able to obtain the kingdom token. Lord of the Blazing Sun. So the price goes to the one who gets it. Dragon Lady Lord, alright. The others also expressed their opinions. He could tell. They had already made preparations to compete before coming. Seeing this, Zhou asked them to start bidding. After more than an hour, the ownership of these 3 kingdom tokens was completely settled. They were obtained by the Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the Mystic Heaven Lord. Instead, the Overlord Lord with the highest grade of Lord talent, among the 4 of them, did not obtain the kingdom token. Regarding this situation, sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Even though the Overlord Lord felt a little aggrieved, he could not do anything. In order to improve his gluttonous demon body, he had used almost all the resources in the territory to buy rare monster flesh. This allowed his strength to increase rapidly. He had even become an extraordinary tier intermediate grade expert. With all kinds of bloodline abilities, it was even enough to kill an epic tier expert. This strength, putting aside the pervert Zhou, it was definitely one of the top 3 human lords in the entire cerulean planet. However, the price of such an achievement was that there was not much wealth left in his territory. As a result, he could not fight back at all in the face of the high-price competition of the other 3 opponents. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Overlord Lord, don't worry too much. This is only the first time the kingdom token is being auctioned. There will be opportunities in the future. Accumulate your wealth well. I will inform you when the kingdom token is auctioned next time. Overlord Lord, alright. When the Military Industry Lord, Dragon Lady Lord, Mystic Heaven Lord, and Undead Lord saw this scene, they felt a little emotional. How proud was the Overlord Lord. They had all come into contact with it, so they naturally knew very well. However, facing the current King of the Blazing Sun, they could only obediently let him comfort them. Chapter 671 Condition to buy the Kingdom Token. This transaction quickly ended. However, the Kingdom Token transaction chat group established by Zhou did not disband. Instead, it chose to be preserved. This way, he could continue using this chat group the next time there was a Kingdom Token transaction. In addition, the Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the others could also pull the cerulean planet lord they felt was strong to join this chat group and participate in the future kingdom token auction. I believe it won't be long before a few new human kingdoms other than me appear on the cerulean planet. Zhou thought to himself. As the main mastermind behind this matter, he actually did not feel much. There were so many human kingdoms on the cerulean planet. In any case, it would not cause him trouble. Instead, it would benefit him a lot. For example, the price Dragon Lady Lord and the others paid to obtain the kingdom token in this transaction. Among them, in the future, the Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the Mystic Heaven Lord would follow his lead. Moreover, their lords would have to offer up their territory and a third of the kingdom's wealth after encountering Zhou's army. The Dragon Lady Lord even promised to give the Blazing Sun Kingdom 100 Drake seeds with dragon bloodline. Their strength ranged from green bronze tier elementary grade to white silver tier advanced grade. The Undead Lord would give the Blazing Sun Kingdom a yellow gold tier advanced grade pure-blooded bone dragon. In the future, the Mystic Heaven Lord would be in charge of the detection of the subject's spiritual roots in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Moreover, the other party had agreed to apply to the Black Heaven sect. In the future, he would build a Black Heaven sect branch in the Blazing Sun Kingdom, so that those with spiritual root aptitude in the Blazing Sun Kingdom could enter a sect and cultivate immortal arts. This way, the Chi practitioner subjects who walked out of the Black Heaven sect's branch sect would naturally serve the Blazing Sun Kingdom in the future. Of course, the materials, mist cores, and other supplies needed to establish the Black Heaven sect needed the Blazing Sun Kingdom to provide and buy them. The Blazing Sun Kingdom also needed to provide wages to the Chi practitioners of the Heavenly Profound sect, who came to establish a subsect. Towards this, Zhou agreed readily. He was also a Chi practitioner, so he naturally knew how powerful they were. Even though it was impossible for every Chi practitioner to be as strong as his chaos sacred body, as long as he could nurture a group of Chi practitioners for his territory, even the most ordinary Chi practitioners would be comparable to kingdom-level combat professionals, or even empire-level combat professionals, in Zhou's judgment. Moreover, in any case, he was worried about not having a place to spend the mist core. Treated as an investment, after recalling the conditions given by these three families, Zhou smiled. Zhou felt that it was very profitable that these three kingdom tokens could be exchanged for so many benefits. Otherwise, these three extraordinary tier advanced grade kingdom tokens would be useless to him and could only be placed in the king's treasure box to eat dust. He did not mind. He opened the Mystic Heaven Lord's chat box and typed, "Lord of the Blazing Sun, how do you plan to let me lead you to destroy that dark martial lord?" Mystic Heaven Lord, actually, I know the location of His Majesty's territory. Zhou did not care much when he saw his regeneration. The location of his territory had long been semi-public after the previous few exposures. He was not very surprised that the Mystic Heaven Lord knew, Lord of the Blazing Sun, and then, Mystic Heaven Lord, I discovered an incomplete ancient teleportation array near the territory not long ago. This ancient teleportation array should have been left behind by a previous cultivator. Black Heaven Lord. After I reported this ancient teleportation array to the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect, a Class 9 array master at the Tribulation Transcendence stage, legendary tier, took action. After repairing it, I realized that it led to the ruins of a dilapidated immortal sect. Mystic Heaven Lord. When we discovered the ruins of this immortal sect, there were no treasures inside. However, that array master still repaired its ancient teleportation array and gave it to our Mystic Heaven City. He said that it was our last way out. Mystic Heaven Lord. Then I personally went there and realized that the location of this immortal sect ruin was actually very close to His Majesty's Blazing Sun Kingdom. According to the calculations of my scouts, His Majesty's soldiers only need to travel more than 50 million kilometers north from the border of the Blazing Sun Kingdom to reach this immortal sect ruin. Actually, more than 50 million kilometers was still a very long distance for most of the lords of the cerulean planet. However, The mystic heaven lord believed that this distance was definitely not considered far for the strongest lord of all races in the previous event. In fact, that was indeed the case. Zhou was a little surprised when he saw the words typed by the mystic heaven lord. More than 50 million kilometers was indeed very close. One had to know that the Starry Night spaceship under his command had advanced by leaps and bounds in all aspects after absorbing the spaceship technology he had obtained from Lord Father. And now, the flying speed of the top Starry Night under his command had increased from 8,000 to 9,000 kilometers per hour to more than 500 million kilometers per hour. More than 50 million kilometers? His Starry Night could arrive in 5 to 6 minutes. Mystic Heaven Lord, if your majesty is at ease with me, you can directly send troops to the Immortal Sect ruins and come to my territory through the spatial teleportation array. Then, you can head to the territory of the Black Martial Alliance. Mystic Heaven Lord, my Mystic Heaven Alliance and the Dark Martial Alliance are not far from each other. It will be very convenient for your majesty to rest or go on an expedition. Zhou agreed without much hesitation. This was the confidence brought about by strength. Of course, he would not be unprepared. He took out a contract and wrote down the content of their conversation, including the transaction of the kingdom token. After writing it, Zhou confirmed it carefully again. After confirming that there was no problem, he signed it himself and sent it to the Mystic Heaven Lord to sign it too. Unlike Zhou, this was the first time the Mystic Heaven Lord had come into contact with this thing. After a long time, only then did he carefully sign his name on the contract and complete this contract. Soon, Zhou looked at the golden scale mark that had already appeared in his palm and smiled. With this contract, the other party was truly trustworthy. Lord of the Blazing Sun, send me the location. If nothing goes wrong, it'll go over tomorrow morning. In addition, send me a copy of the Dark Martial Lord's military distribution and faction distribution. Don't say that you don't have them. The two Lord alliances of the Cerulean planet had been at odds with each other for so long. It would be suspicious if there was no information about the other party's war. Mystic Heaven Lord, of course. After saying that, in less than 2 to 3 seconds, Zhou received a paper document from him. After Zhou opened it, he took a rough look and clicked his tongue in wonder. This Dark Martial Lord was not even as strong as the Aurora Kingdom when it was on the verge of destruction. A keyboard warrior, right? It'll be a keyboard warrior tomorrow. Zhou thought maliciously. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 672 Vast Sea of Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. Zhou and the Mystic Heaven Lord discussed the details of their cooperation tomorrow, before ending the conversation. The Night Empire's faction quests, the invasion of the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, and the attack on the Black Martial Lord. There's a lot going on tomorrow. Zhou thought about his schedule for tomorrow, and could not help but sigh. Then he thought about it, and felt that he should have enough time. It shouldn't take long to attack the Black Martial Lord after all. The remaining time should be more than enough to do the first two things. At most, I won't do the Night Empire's faction quests for the time being. I'll let it go for a day. After dealing with the Black Martial Lord, I'll focus on dealing with the invasion of the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion. Zhou thought. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Zhou said casually. Soon, Aaliyah opened the door and walked over quickly. Your Majesty, Prime Minister Zheng just came over to say that all the lords of the Ice Demon Kingdom have arrived at the Blazing Sun Kingdom and are waiting in Conference Room 1 of the Administrative Hall. Aaliyah said respectfully, I almost forgot about this. Zhou stood up and walked out of the room towards the Administrative Hall. In the Administrative Hall, Conference Room 1, when Zhou arrived, he saw more than 100,000 Ice Ghost Lords gathered here. Greetings, Your Majesty. When Zhou entered, the sharp-eyed Ice Ghost Lords immediately discovered him. Then, someone took the lead, and the entire conference room immediately sounded with fanatical shouts. Zhou smiled and walked onto the stage. He looked at the 100,000 Ice Ghost Lords who were shouting fanatically in front of him, and felt a little emotional. This was the foundation of an intermediate kingdom. Previously, he had gathered all the lords of the Aurora Kingdom and the Titan Kingdom, the two beginner kingdoms, but there were only more than 10,000 lords. Currently, there were already more than 100,000 lords from the Ice Demon Kingdom's intermediate kingdom. It could be seen how huge the difference between the beginner kingdom and the intermediate kingdom was. However, the more lords came, the more lord talent crystal fragments he could obtain. He was naturally even happier. Everyone stopped shouting. I can already feel your enthusiasm. Jojo smiled and comforted her. All the Ice Ghost lords laughed when they heard this. Then they gradually quietened down. At this moment, Your Majesty, it's the same as last time. This is the specific list of all the Ice Ghost lords this time. It records their abilities, strength, and previous lord experiences. Zheng Yuanqi walked over and handed Jojo a list as he whispered. Jojo nodded and took it. He took a rough look before a smile appeared on his face. There were actually a total of 116,255 Ice Ghost lords. How many Lord Talent crystal fragments would this provide him? He was looking forward to it. Then, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and looked up at the Ice Ghost lords in front of him. Since you can come here, you should know why I called you here. Let me explain something that's not clear. Firstly, I want to see everyone's aptitude. If your aptitude is good, I won't be stingy with the rewards. Secondly, as the Blazing Sun Kingdom expanded, the place also needs more and more capable officials to take over and take care of the livelihood development of the people. I called you all here to make it easier for you to arrange your positions in the future. Of course, everyone is from the Ice Demon state. When our officials arrange positions, they will naturally prioritize you to take up positions in the Ice Demon state. You can rest assured about this. In terms of treatment, our Blazing Sun Kingdom is famous for treating officials well. Everyone should have heard of this, right? Jojo said. When the Ice Ghosts heard this, they nodded in agreement. They had naturally done some investigations before coming to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. In particular, they knew why they were here, so the focus of their investigation was on how they would be treated after becoming local officials. He would not have known if he did not investigate, but if results were shocking. Good God! Was the treatment of the officials of the Blazing Sun Kingdom so good? The minimum fixed monthly salary of a regional lord of a yellow gold tier regional territory was 500 yellow gold tier mist cores. If he made outstanding political achievements, he would be rewarded with at least 100 white silver tier mist cores, and the highest unrestricted political achievement reward? Every time the average loyalty of the subjects in the territory increased by 1 point, they would be rewarded with 10,000 diamond tier mist cores? They were stunned when they found out about the reward mechanism for these officials' performance. What was going on with the Blazing Sun Kingdom? They looked at the mist core like it was dirt. Did they have a grudge against the mist core? As for the rules that did not allow them to bully the weak for no reason, even though they were not used to it, they immediately felt that, what kind of question was this? As long as the mist core was in place, it was fine even if the race was changed. Seeing that the Ice Ghosts did not seem to have any objections, Jojo got someone to distribute the specific reward and punishment system. After all the Ice Ghosts read it and expressed no objections, Jojo raised the main reason why he was here. Next, I'll do something to verify your loyalty. Please don't resist. After the verification is completed, you will really be one of us. I will also give you some rewards, he said. When the Ice Ghost lords heard this, their expressions were filled with anticipation. They thought of something they had heard about this before they came. It was said that as long as a lord passed this step, they would be rewarded by the King of the Blazing Sun with at least 1,000 special soldier type. The King of Yellow Gold class certificate. That was a special soldier type. Special soldier types could be considered top-notch, even in the Ice Demon Kingdom. It was not something ordinary Ice Ghost lords could come into contact with. Now they had a chance to obtain such a dreamlike top-notch soldier type under the King of the Blazing Sun. How could they not look forward to it? On the stage, Jojo was also looking forward to it. He took a deep breath, and the chaotic origin energy in his body surged into the master thief's robbery gloves on his right arm. The next second, he used the master thief's robbery gloves to steal all the Lord Talent crystal fragments of the more than 100,000 ice ghost lords in front of him into his king's treasure box. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. He took a look and was pleasantly surprised to discover that these 116,255 lords had actually provided him with 601,125 black iron tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 6,514 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 2,690 white silver tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 1,550 yellow gold tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 620 white platinum tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 133 diamond tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 21 extraordinary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 5 epic tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and barely suppressed his excitement. Compared to the treasure vault of the Ice Demon Kingdom, these Lord Talent crystal fragments in front of him were the greatest treasures he had obtained. Chapter 673 God of Pastures, Mu Gu. After that, Zhou Zhou chatted briefly with the Ice Ghost Lords before handing everything over to Zheng Yuanqi. Then he left. Then, he walked out of the administrative hall and returned to the Advanced Grade Lord's Paradise. In a study room in the Advanced Grade Lord's Paradise, Zhou Zhou sat in front of the desk. He opened his Lord Talent panel with a thought. I can upgrade my Lord Talent this time. Zhou Zhou looked at his 28 Lord Talents and smiled. Then, after some thought, he took out 10 Diamond Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into a Diamond Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. Zhou Zhou looked at the Diamond Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals and chanted in his heart. The next second, the Diamond Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals in his hand emitted a bright diamond light. A text notification appeared. You have 3 white Platinum Tier Lord Talents at the same time: Monster Ranch, Mysterious Caravan, and Dragon Slaying Hometown. Please choose one to advance. I choose to advance the Monster Ranch. Zhou Zhou said without hesitation. Monster Ranch was the fastest way to increase his military strength among the many methods he currently had. Even the Insight Defection, which had advanced to the Epic Tier Lord Talent, was inferior to the soldiers provided to him by the White Platinum Tier Monster Ranch. Of course, this did not mean that Insight Defection was weak. However, up until now, Zhou Zhou had not touched the upper limit of Insight Defection. In other words, it was a Lord faction that had incited the Insight Defection's mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. Lord factions of this level usually represented veteran Empire-level Lord factions. Zhou Zhou had never instigated an old Empire-level Lord faction like this. He had only instigated a lower-level Lord faction. Under such circumstances, the number of enemies who instigated an instigation naturally did not seem to be as many as the new recruits provided by the Monster Ranch. However, even so, it could be seen how great the potential of the Monster Ranch was. Therefore, after Zhou Zhou thought of upgrading his Lord Talent, the first thing he wanted to upgrade was the Monster Ranch. As for the 2 white Platinum Tier Lord Talents, Mysterious Caravan and Dragon Slaying Hometown, the former had just been upgraded not long ago, and there was no need to continue upgrading it for the time being. As for the latter, Zhou Zhou did not know what use it had. Under such circumstances, naturally, he had to save the Lord Talent crystal fragments to upgrade his main Lord Talent. Lord Talent has been chosen. Upgrading in progress. The next second, he felt a familiar warm feeling between his eyebrows. Zhou Zhou's expression was calm. A moment later, the warmth on his forehead gradually disappeared. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your White Platinum Tier Lord Talent Monster Ranch has been upgraded to Diamond Tier Lord Talent Monster Ranch. You have leveled up to Diamond Tier Lord Talent Effect, Lord Talent. Monster Ranch Diamond Tier. Monster Ranch. Your territory has the method to build a special building Monster Ranch. After upgrading to Diamond Tier Lord Talent, the information of this talent still hasn't changed? Looks like I have to ask Mu Gu to come over. Zhou looked at the information of the upgraded monster ranch and muttered to himself. Then, without hesitation, he took out 10 extraordinary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into an extraordinary tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals, directly upgrading the monster ranch to extraordinary tier Lord Talent. However, what made Zhou a little speechless was that even if he upgraded to the extraordinary tier Lord Talent again, the talent information of the monster ranch did not change. He shook his head and did not mind. He called Atli over and asked her to inform Mugu to come over immediately after he recovered. Atli took the order and left a moment later. Mugu came over. "Greetings, Your Majesty," he said respectfully. "Can you feel your improvement? Tell me the details." Zhou smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty." Mugu nodded and slowly said, "Your Majesty, I am still an extraordinary tier elementary grade monster rancher and monster patriarch. However, I now have a total of 10,000 monster shepherds under me. In addition, the number of monster ranches under my command has also increased from 100 to 500 today. Moreover, the maximum capacity of each monster ranch has increased from 100,000 to 500,000. Zhou could not help but click his tongue. Each monster ranch could accommodate 500,000 fog monsters. Wouldn't a total of 500 monster ranches be able to accommodate 250 million ranch monsters? Good God! Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Zhou instantly felt that the invasion of the refined flame Scarlet Legion tomorrow would not be a problem. There were a total of 250 million ranch monsters. Zhou did not even need to send troops. When the other party's Scarlet Army arrived tomorrow, he would directly get Mugu to order these 250 million ranch monsters to attack the other party's Scarlet Army with all their might. It would probably be enough to kill most of them. Most importantly, the ranch monsters were not afraid of the scarlet fog in the night, which meant his ranch monsters could completely go against the other party's Scarlet Legion in the night without any scruples. The problem that Zhou was most worried about previously disappeared. Not bad, not bad. Zhou praised. Your Majesty, I'm not done yet. Mugu smiled. What other improvements? Zhou was a little surprised. Your Majesty, please take a look. Mugu stretched out his right hand and saw an irregular square mini-continent slowly appear in his palm. Zhou's vision was astonishing. He could tell at a glance that the mini-continent in Mugu's hands was actually neatly arranged with a vast monster ranch. Moreover, every monster ranch was currently rearing a huge number of fog monsters. This is a continent. Zhou hesitated. Yes. Mugu nodded and smiled. After Your Majesty's improvement, I suddenly realized that a continent had appeared out of thin air in my body. It's called Ranchland Continent. This continent seems to be specially made for raising monsters. Its area is about 800,000 square kilometers, and monster ranches are naturally built inside. Moreover, there's no need for me to personally control each monster ranch. Every day, a huge number of monster ranch monsters will automatically appear in the early morning to fill the gap in the monster ranch. This pattern is very rigid. The next time to fill the vacancy in the monster ranch will probably be at dawn the day after tomorrow. Moreover, the size of this ranchland continent, the number of monster ranches, and the upper limit of each monster ranch to accommodate monsters will also increase with the strength of its subordinates. I also used this opportunity to comprehend my path to becoming a god. This path to becoming a god will probably follow the laws of cultivation, feeding, monsters, and so on. Because of the path of laws, my class name is no longer the Monster Patriarch. It's the God of Pastures. This god doesn't mean that my strength has already reached the god spirit realm, but because I have mastered a continental world that completely belongs to me. Therefore, I achieved the name of this priesthood with the status of the god of the world. Mugu explained his abilities one by one. Chapter 674 Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent. The shelter of the goddess of life. After Zhou heard this, he was naturally overjoyed. He had never expected this. Monster Ranch's upgrade to Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent actually had such a huge increase. Not only did the number of monsters that could be reared increase greatly, but Mugu also comprehended his own path to becoming a god and controlled such a magical continent. This improvement, anyone who heard this would probably say that it was ridiculous. Can someone else enter your monster continent? Zhou looked at the mini-continent in Zhou's hand and suddenly asked. Sure. I'm the creation god of this continental world. I naturally control everything in this continental world, including allowing life forms to enter and expel them. But I'm not omnipotent. If an expert above the low-tier deity level descends on my monster continent, because the other party's strength has already exceeded the upper limit of my world's energy level, it would be fine if the other party doesn't have any hostility. They can still live peacefully in my ranchland continent and won't cause any damage to it. However, if the other party has evil intentions, after entering the ranch world, he can completely destroy my world by himself. Even if he doesn't destroy my world, the other party can come and go as he pleases. My world can't trap the other party at all. Mugu shook his head. Zhou nodded. Even though there were these restrictions, it was also very difficult to hide the excellence of this ranchland continent. Zhou thought for a moment and said, these 500 monster ranches will use 200 to nurture the violent storm demon spirit, 100 to nurture the king of yellow gold, 100 to nurture the mechanical fear falcon, 50 to nurture the iron-eating bear, and 50 to nurture the withered tree. As for the poisonous crossbow soldier type represented by the black-tailed fog scorpion, it was temporarily not produced. The soldier type was too weak and was too far behind his version. It was really not worth nurturing. And the current ranch cultivation configuration, it satisfied the long-range spell attack configuration of Zhou's army, the melee meat shield configuration, the flying arms configuration, the land mount configuration, and the territory's economic source, Jade Sun Tree. At the moment, it could barely be considered perfect. It's a pity that up until now, I haven't encountered any monsters that dropped medical class change certificates and recruitment books. Otherwise, the spoils of war from my monster ranch would be perfect. Zhou thought greedily. Actually, during this period of time, the Lords of the Star Alliance had been sending him all kinds of monsters for him to see. Unfortunately, monsters were easy to come by. Good trophies were hard to come by. After that, Zhou chatted with Mugu for a while before letting him leave. After Mugu left, Zhou's gaze landed on his Lord Talent interface. He had obtained too many Lord Talent crystal fragments today. He estimated that he would have to upgrade many useful Lord Talents. Soon, his gaze landed on a Lord Talent. It was the Diamond Tier Lord Talent, the shelter of the Goddess of Life. There are more and more soldiers under my command now. Especially with the Monster Ranch talent that allowed me to level up 2 times in a row. The growth of my soldiers will only become more and more terrifying. Monsters without the class change certificate and recruitment books. Then we can only let the number of clergymen who have mastered the small resurrection spell catch up first. At the thought of this, Zhou no longer hesitated. He took out 10 extraordinary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into an extraordinary tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals. Then, he upgraded the shelter of the Goddess of Life. Soon, the Lord Talent information of the Goddess of Life shelter appeared. Lord Talent, the shelter of the Goddess of Life extraordinary tier. The shelter of the Goddess of Life. Your territory will have a special building, the shelter of the Goddess of Life. I have to go to Carol Moella's place too. At the thought of this, Zhou did not hesitate. He walked out of the advanced grade Lord's paradise and walked towards the shelter of the Goddess of Life. In front of the shelter of the Goddess of Life, after Zhou arrived, he looked at the building in front of him. The upgraded Goddess of Life's shelter was now more than 300 meters tall. It was made of silver and gold bricks. The temples were connected to each other, forming a temple complex. Around the temple complex, the air was fresh and green. Passers-by only needed to take a breath of the air here to feel much more relaxed. Some sick old men sat in wheelchairs and greedily absorbed the air here, as if the air here was a panacea. And right in front of the shelter, a statue of the Goddess of Life stood here. Her face was still beautiful, and she was wearing a green religious dress with gold trimmings. She looked dignified and solemn, but also kind and natural. Zhou looked solemnly at the tall statue of the goddess of life. He could actually sense a rich aura of life divine power from this statue. It was as if this statue was the goddess of life herself. He took a deep breath, and did not dare to think too much about it. Then he looked at the building information. Building name: the Shelter of the Goddess of Life. Building level: Special grade. Building function 1. Archbishop Carol Moali of the Shelter, and her clergymen, priests, nuns and other clergymen can each provide the lord and subject of the territory with basic protection services 3 times a day for free. However, if you need more protection in the future, you will need to spend mist cores or faith divine crystals to buy them. Currently providing shelter types: basic shelter service. Life Holy Water, 1 green bronze tier mist core. Basic shelter service. Life Healing Technique, 2 green bronze tier mist cores. Basic shelter service. Appeasement, 2 green bronze tier mist cores. Basic shelter service. Mental Communication, 2 green bronze tier mist cores. Advanced Protection. Hire a life priest, 1 faith divine crystals per day. Advanced Protection. Hire a life paladin, 3 faith divine crystals per day. Advanced Protection. Divine Art Soul Restoration, 1 faith divine crystal. Advanced Protection. Divine Art Limb Restoration, 5 faith divine crystals. Advanced Protection. Divine Art, Holy Protection, 5 faith divine crystals. Advanced Protection. Divine Art Small Resurrection, 5 faith divine crystals. Advanced Protection. Divine Art Great Resurrection, 1 faith divine crystals. Building function 2. When the Lord and his forces go out to hunt fog monsters, they will encounter fog monsters with a small chance of dropping scarlet crystals. After handing the scarlet crystals to the Shelter of the Goddess of Life, they can be converted into faith divine crystals and exchange for the protection they want. Construction upgrade. This building originates from the Lord talent and cannot be upgraded. Prompt 1. The above level of the shelter service will increase as the territory level increases. Prompt 2. Building Effect 2 is the exclusive building effect of this special building. The Shelter of the Goddess of Life, doesn't have this ability. Building Description. The Goddess of Life saw that all life forms in the world were suffering from war. So she built the Shelter of the Goddess of Life everywhere in the High Continent to reduce the death of life forms. All life forms who enter the Shelter of the Goddess of Life are protected by the Goddess of Life. Chapter 675 Resurrecting the Black Moon King. Your heart is on the wrong path. There is a lot of upgrade. Zhou was a little surprised. Firstly, Carol Moali had been promoted from Archbishop to Cardinal. As a Cardinal personally conferred by the Goddess of Life, its status was already comparable to the Pope of some veteran kingdom-level lord factions. The number of asylum services added another high-level asylum service on top of the 3 basic shelter services. The next was the greatest improvement. The prices of the basic shelter service and advanced shelter service, provided by the Shelter of the Goddess of Life, had almost halved. The prices of some services had even decreased even more. Nonetheless, the price of using the Great Resurrection spell was still 1 Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystal. Finally, the probability of dropping scarlet crystals had increased from a small probability to a high probability. This was naturally useless to Zhou. His drop rate was 100% after all. There was no difference between a higher chance and a lower chance for him. Not bad, not bad. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, the door of the shelter suddenly opened slowly. Carol Moali walked out of the shelter with 5 clergymen in Archbishop attire. Cardinal Carol Moali greets Your Majesty. Archbishop Barry Millie / Julius Marcia / McPherson Muriel / Bloomer Bridget / Collins Mamie greets Your Majesty. The 6 of them said respectfully, Are they the subordinates sent by the Goddess of Life to assist you? Zhou asked with interest. A cardinal. 5 archbishops. Such a configuration was not rare among veteran kingdom-level lord factions. However, it was quite surprising in a lord faction that had just established its territory. Yes, Your Majesty. They have mastered the Great Resurrection spell and other divine arts. They are the most elite clergymen in the shelter. Carol Moali said respectfully. How many clerics have mastered the Great Resurrection spell in your shelter now? Jojo asked curiously. There are now as many as 20 cardinal-level clerics who have mastered the Great Resurrection spell in the shelter. Carol Moali said truthfully. Jojo nodded. There were so many of these expertises that they were overflowing. How many clerics are there in the shelter now? How strong are they? Jojo asked. The shelter of the Goddess of Life has 10 million clergymen, 10 million priests, 10 million nuns, and 100 million paladins of life after our Lord Talent was upgraded to extraordinary tier. And my strength has also risen to the level of low-tier deity level advanced grade. Jojo clicked his tongue. Good God! A total of 140 million clergymen. The soldiers under his command, and the soldiers of the Star Alliance, did not even have 100 million. Jojo suddenly felt that it was a pity at the thought of this. The nature of these 140 million clergymen was similar to mercenaries. They basically wouldn't help him without using the faith divine crystals. He shook his head unconcerned. He was confident now that he had an extraordinary tier monster ranch. The total number of soldiers under his command would exceed 100 million by the next day. Then he suddenly thought of something. Since you're already at low-tier deity level advanced grade, do resurrect a god for me. Jojo said. Your Majesty, please follow me. Carol Moali didn't ask how strong the god that Jojo had resurrected was. Since His Majesty said it himself, he could definitely be resurrected. In other words, his strength was below hers. A moment later, in the shelter of the Goddess of Life, in the main hall, Your Majesty, please give me 20 Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals, and the other party's divine item. Carol Moali said. Jojo flipped his right hand, and 20 Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals, and the black moon blade appeared in his hand. He handed it to the other party. After Carol Moali took it, she went to the statue of the Goddess of Life, and began to preside over the Great Resurrection spell. She raised the scepter in her hands with both hands, closed her eyes and muttered something. It was different from the past. Jojo watched this scene with a serious expression. This time, it was a god spirit that had revived, which meant the will of the Goddess of Life would personally descend. When he thought about how one of the 10 master god tiers was about to appear in front of him, Jojo would be lying if he said that he wasn't nervous and excited. At this moment, boom! A terrifying god spirit pressure suddenly descended. At this moment, all the living beings within 100 kilometers discovered a tall, dignified, but intimate, female figure in the depths of their hearts. 99% of these life forms had never seen this life form in their lives. However, at this moment, they naturally knew the other party's name in their minds. He was the source of life. He was also the mother of all living beings. He was the goddess of salvation. He was the undead deity. And he was the goddess of all races. He was goddess of life. Carol Moali, who was closing her eyes and chanting, suddenly opened her eyes slowly. Emerald green light filled with life aura poured out of his opened eyes. Rare plants grew seedlings out of thin air where the light illuminated. Then, as if there was no limit to their growth time, they grew crazily, bloomed, and bore fruits before stagnating at the most beautiful stage. When he completely opened his eyes, his surroundings had already become a place surrounded by flowers, plants, and trees. Moreover, it seemed to be spreading incessantly. Jojo watched the scene calmly. Was this the power of one of the 10 master god tiers? Such a phenomenon. It was simply as if the laws were personally involved. Her Excellency, the Goddess of Life, is probably not weak even among the 10 master god tier, he thought to himself. At this moment, he was surprised to discover that the first thing this Goddess of Life did not look at the Black Moon Blade to revive the Black Moon King after the will descended. Instead, she looked straight at him. Interesting little guy. A dignified voice with a faint smile sounded from all directions. It was as if it filled the entire world. Among the lords of all races, you are the only lord who has comprehended the Lord's law. However, your path is right, but your heart is on the wrong path. With that, the Goddess of Life did not continue. She waved her hand, and sprinkled an emerald green divine power on the black moon blade. Then, a phantom was pulled out of thin air and landed on the black moon blade. Then, it gradually condensed into a figure, wearing a black royal robe with a pitch-black face. There was a silver moon mark on his forehead, and a black crown on his head. It was the Black Moon King. At this moment, the Black Moon King was already breathing steadily even though his eyes were closed. It was obvious that he had been revived. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. Then he frowned slightly. Her Excellency the Goddess of Life. What did she mean by saying that his heart was on the wrong path? Chapter 676 Looking for the Supreme Will to Farm Battle Results? When he looked at Carol Moeli again, he realized that the emerald green light in his eyes had already disappeared, leaving only a pale and tired expression and the surrounding scene. How are you? Zhou immediately walked over and supported him. It's okay, Your Majesty. I'm just a little tired. Carol Moeli forced a smile. Zhou thought for a moment and took out a pill from his king's treasure box. This medicinal pill was called the Heaven Returning Divine Pill. It was a low-tier deity-level advanced-grade god-tier pill. It was a god-tier medicinal pill specially used to restore his own state among the many god-tier items he had obtained. If a god spirit exhausted all its divine power, as long as he consumed this moment's heaven-returning divine pill, he could allow a low-tier deity to quickly recover all his divine power in just a minute and return to his peak state. In the outside world, this god-tier pill was extremely precious even to god spirits. But to Zhou, such a low-tier deity-level advanced-grade medicinal pill could casually drop more than 10 or even dozens of legendary-tier advanced-grade enemies. Naturally, it was not rare. This pill is too precious. When Carol Moeli saw the pill and felt the rich aura of divinity emitting from it, she immediately realized how precious it was and hurriedly refused. In his eyes, he could recover his state as long as he rested. There was no need to use such a precious medicinal pill. Take it. Zhou shook his head and placed it forcefully in Carol Moeli's hand. Thank you, Your Majesty. Carol Moeli blushed slightly when she sensed the aura on His Majesty. Then she returned to her indifferent state. Zhou did not notice the other party's expression. He walked in front of the Black Moon King and realized that he had already woken up and sat up. Is this the territory of the Blazing Sun Kingdom? Were you the one who revived me? Are you the king of the Blazing Sun? The Black Moon King looked at the Lord of the Blazing Sun blankly. Zhou nodded. How long have I been dead? 10 years, 100 years, or tens of millions of years? The Black Moon King said with a complicated gaze. He was already prepared to accept the changes in the world. Senior died in battle the day before yesterday and was revived today. Zhou said without thinking. Black Moon King. Just 2 days. His gaze became even more complicated. Senior, do you think you haven't been dead long enough? Zhou hesitated for a moment before understanding what the other party meant. Unexpectedly, the other party nodded in agreement. I can brag to those old fellows when I get back if I was dead for a longer time. I'm not afraid of death, and will fight the Supreme Will alone. Now that I've been revived in less than 2 days, how will those old fellows look at my deed of fighting the Supreme Will fearlessly when I return? Those who don't know might think that I've discussed it with you and found the Supreme Will to farm battle results. The Black Moon King said with a pained expression. Zhou. Looking for the Supreme Will to farm battle results. Why was this big shot's brain so strange? Moreover, could you be considered to have a huge battle with the Supreme Will? You were instantly killed, alright. He was a little speechless. However, he did not undermine the other party at this time. After a long time, the Black Moon King finally came back to his senses from this complicated emotion. How are the subjects of the Kingdom of Black Moon Kingdom? He asked. General Yu Luo has already brought all 36 million subjects of the Black Moon Kingdom to my kingdom safely. If Senior wants to rebuild the Black Moon Kingdom, I can safely send all 37 million subjects to you. Zhou said. While he valued his subjects very much and hoped that he would have more and more of them, he would not lick his face and force the other party's subjects to stay when the original king was revived. In any case, he was not short of 37 million subjects. Why did he have to do such a thing? The Black Moon King looked at Zhou, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. I did not make the wrong decision that day, he thought to himself. There was nothing that was disappointing about the human in front of him, be it in terms of power, potential, ability, personality, and character. How rare. He sighed in his heart. I want to tour your kingdom. May I? The Black Moon King asked. Of course. Zhou nodded and asked. However, Senior, your subordinate, General Yuluo, seems to want you to be revived. Do you want to tell him? Yuluo. The Black Moon King nodded. I'll tell him later. He should be bringing the wealth of my Black Moon Kingdom to the human capital to meet the Emperor. Let's not interrupt him at this time. Emperor? Zhou was a little curious. The Black Moon King nodded, reverence appearing on his face. He looked at Zhou and said solemnly, the Emperor is the leader of our human race. He is the only candidate personally chosen by the will of the human race to lead the human race. Whether it's strength, character, personality, dedication, recognition, and responsibility to the human race, they can be considered the strongest among the human race. You should have a chance to see the Emperor in the future. At that time, you must remember to respect him. Zhou was a little surprised. There was actually a leader of the human race, chosen by the will of humans. It seemed that this person was definitely an impeccable person in all aspects. According to the bloodline inheritance in his mind, the will of the race was almost equivalent to a small account of the supreme will that had its slot decreased countless times for a race. The leader of the race chosen in such a way naturally would not be the wrong choice. I will. Zhou agreed seriously. The Black Moon King smiled and nodded. It was already late. It was clearly not very convenient for the Black Moon King to go out and take a look at his Blazing Sun Kingdom. Nor could he see the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. Therefore, the Black Moon King took the initiative to ask Zhou to arrange a place for him to stay. He would go out and take a look at the territory scenery of the Blazing Sun Kingdom tomorrow morning. Zhou naturally would not refuse. He immediately sent someone to make arrangements. After making the arrangements, the two of them separated. When Zhou walked out of the shelter of the Goddess of Life, he was surprised to discover that there were actually dense subjects surrounding the shelter. Among these subjects, there were human subjects, other people of foreign races, and even some holy clergymen of the Holy Elven race. It should have been attracted by the phenomenon of the Goddess of Lives descend just now. He thought to himself. Zhou did not mind. He casually cast an invisibility spell on himself and left, returning to the Advanced Grade Lord's Paradise. In a study room in the Advanced Grade Lord's Paradise, Zhou sat back in his previous seat and opened his Lord Talent panel again. He gazed at his 28 Lord Talents. Chapter 677 Improving the Lord Talent Crazily. 1. Zhou looked at it for a while before his gaze landed on Insight Defection. I have 14 Epic Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments on hand now. I can upgrade Insight Defection to the Epic Tier. But, do I really need to upgrade it? Zhou hesitated. His idea was to keep these high-level Lord Talent Crystal Fragments to upgrade the Blessing of the War God. The Epic Tier Lord Talent, Blessing of the War God, could not only quickly increase the combat strength of the lower-level soldiers, it could also greatly increase the speed at which the high-end combat strength under his command increased. This was something that the two Lord Talents, Monster Ranch and Insight Defection, could not do. And now, according to the enemies he had come into contact with so far, he had enough soldiers, and they were even overflowing. However, he could not keep up with the high-end combatants. From the combat strength of a god spirit, excluding Heros and Zaiwu, the two god spirit external helpers, and Carol Moeli the half-mercenary, the only god spirit that truly belonged to him under his command was the low-tier deity-level Lady Iceflower, Vicky. As for his current opponents, which one of them did not have a few low-tier god spirits under their command? Which one of them did not have a few low-tier god spirits under their command? If not for the fact that true god tier could not easily fight in the high continent, Zhou even felt that he might have encountered a true god tier god spirit. From this, it could be seen how scarce the high-end combatants under his command were. At the thought of this, Zhou decided to leave these 14 epic tier Lord Talent crystal fragments behind to upgrade the blessing of the war god to the legendary tier in the future. Now, I have 5 legendary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and 14 epic tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. Which means, I only need to gather another 36 epic tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, or 4 legendary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, to upgrade the blessing of the war god. This number shouldn't be too many, Zhou thought. The tribulation of all races in front of him was the best opportunity to gather these Lord Talent crystal fragments. Then, he looked at the other Lord Talents. He thought about it. Zhou made a decision. Upgrade the Gnome Alchemy Workshop. Return to the city, yellow gold tier. Gift of the Machina, white silver tier. Embrace of the Conqueror, white silver tier. Fighting God Full-Time Master 2, Trashman, yellow gold tier. Sturdy Constitution, Peach Luck, Beauty Spirit Body 3 white silver tier. Zhou thought. In any case, they were all low-level Lord Talents. After leveling up, it would not affect the upgrade of the high-level Lord Talent. He took out the Lord Talent crystal fragments and began to upgrade them one by one. Soon all the Lord Talents had been upgraded. Lord Talent, Alchemy Union Diamond Tier. Specific Talent Effect 1. There is a special building in your territory, the Alchemy Association. In this Alchemy Association, a large number of alchemy pharmacists, alchemy technicians, alchemy engineers, alchemy enchanters, and other alchemy professionals are gathered. They often sold some alchemy class products, and only needed to spend a certain amount of mist cores to buy them from those alchemy professionals. You can also provide them with materials to let these alchemy professionals work for you. Specific Talent Effect 2. You can spend a different number of mist cores to send your subjects to the Alchemy Union to choose an advanced alchemy professional to further their studies. From there, they can change their profession to alchemy professionals. Specific Talent Effect 3. When the Lord or the forces under the Lord go out to hunt fog monsters, they will encounter fog monsters that have a very small chance of dropping alchemy items. This includes but is not limited to alchemy potion recipes, alchemy technology product blueprints, alchemy materials packs, alchemy technology master recruitment orders, alchemy items, Lord Talent. Return to the city, yellow gold tier. Return to the city. No matter where you are, you will immediately return to your territory and recover 100% of your physical state in the next 8 seconds after chanting the designated password. You can also specify 10 million life forms or 10 million units of supplies to return to your territory together. If the designated person is a life form, he will recover 50% of his physical state in the next hour. Lord Talent Notification. This talent can be activated 4 times a day. Lord Talent. Gift of the Machina Diamond Tier. Gift of the Machina. There is a Diamond Tier Advanced Grade Spaceship, Galaxy, from the Machinery race in your territory. It is a gift from the Machina race to the lords who participated in the fight for the position of Lord of all races. It also represents the friendship between the Machina race and you. Gift of the Machina. There are 10 Diamond Tier Advanced Grade spaceships from the Machina race, the Galaxy, in your territory. It is a gift from the Machina race to the lords who participated in the competition for the position of Lord of all races. It also represents the friendship between the Machina race and you. Specific Talent Effect 2. The Galaxy is the crystallization of the Machina race's technological wisdom. It has a mechanical life form that has already grown to a low-tier deity level advanced grade. It is called the Galaxy Star God. He possesses a low-tier deity level elementary grade folding space function, low-tier deity level elementary grade space warehouse, low-tier deity level elementary grade spaceship defense, low-tier deity level elementary grade flight speed, low-tier deity level elementary grade life detection, and anti-reconnaissance radar, low-tier deity level elementary grade space stealth, low-tier deity level elementary grade ultra-distance positioning and transmission, low-tier deity level elementary grade research ability, low-tier deity level elementary grade dark universe shuttle function, low-tier deity level elementary grade Guardians of the Galaxy, Low-tier deity level elementary grade galaxy star god manufacturing factor, automatic repair function. Specific talent effect 3. Starry Night uses mist cores and divine crystals as its energy source. 10 legendary tier mist cores, or 1 low-tier deity level elementary grade divine crystal, can allow Galaxy to operate at full power for 24 hours. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Lord Talent. Embrace of the Conqueror, Diamond Tier. Embrace of the Conqueror, 1. Every time a lord conquers a territory, he can attract a different number of classless subjects to join his territory. 2. Every time a lord conquered a regional territory, he could attract a different number of professional subjects to join his territory. 3. Every time a lord conquered a kingdom, he could obtain the loyalty of 3 heroes with an extraordinary tier hero fate level slot, and 1 hero with an epic tier hero fate level slot. 4. Every time a lord conquered an empire, he could obtain the loyalty of 3 heroes with the legendary tier hero fate level slot, and 1 hero with the low tier deity level. 5. Every time a lord conquers a divine kingdom, he can obtain the loyalty of 2 heroes with the true god tier hero fate level slot. Lord Talent. Full-time Master of the Battle God 6 Diamond Tier. Specific talent effect. You can have 6 additional combat class. Combat God Hint. Once an additional class is chosen, it cannot be changed. Lord Talent Collector Diamond Tier. Scavenger. You are a famous collector. You have countless treasures that are recognized by the outside world. As a collector, you have a greedy intuition towards the treasures in the world. You can acutely sense the location of the treasures within a radius of 10,000 kilometers. At the same time, if the treasure you collect has characteristics such as time-bound or endurance, you can rely on your rich collection and preservation experience to find a way to extend the usage of this treasure. It can be extended by up to 4 times. At special moments, you can also activate your collector's power and temporarily increase the number of uses of this treasure. However, this overdraft of the treasure often comes with a certain price. When you extract the loots from the corpse, the drop rate will increase by an additional 25%. Chapter 678 Improving the Lord Talents Crazily. 2. Lord Talent. Connate Spirit Body Diamond Tier. Sturdy Constitution. Both you and your territory subject have innate spirit bodies. Your potential will increase by a large level, up to no more than the legendary tier. As an innate spirit body, not only did its body not contain any harmful impurities, but it was also easier to absorb the energy of the world. At the same time, it was easier to break through the bottleneck of the realm. Even if it failed to break through, it would not cause harm to itself. Lord Talent. Connate Spirit Body Diamond Tier. Spirit Body 3. Cultivate Constitution Type Lord Talent. You and your subject have a cultivation physique like Spirit Body 6. When undergoing martial arts cultivation, elemental meditation, chi refinement meditation, and other cultivation activities, the efficiency of absorbing promotion energy has increased by 4,000%. Even if you and your subjects don't cultivate, the promotion energy wandering in the world will automatically fuse into your body and accelerate your strength realm. Lord Talent. Peach Luck, White Platinum Tier. Peach Luck. Territory Folk Customs Type Lord Talent. It's very easy for you and your subjects to make connections with Peach Luck. The people you meet are all people worthy of your love. Specific Talent Effect 1. White Platinum Tier Crop. Little immortality peach tree grows in a random area in the territory. It can be picked and transplanted. Specific Talent Effect 2. Favorability increased by 100% when the subjects of the territory communicate with the opposite sex. Specific Talent Effect 3. The reproduction efficiency of the territory's subjects increases by 500%. Specific Talent Effect 4. Your territory subjects will not be promiscuous and will not contract the peach blossom disease. Specific Talent Effect 5. The child born between a loving couple and subjects in your territory has the potential to increase by a major level. Specific Talent Effect 6. When a territory subject chooses a spouse, it is easier to tell from the other party's words and actions if the other party is really worthy of love. Lord Talent, Beauty, White Platinum Tier. Beauty Face. The looks of you, your territory subjects, and your descendants have been permanently improved. When you encounter other life forms, it's easier to obtain their favorability immediately through your looks. Note: as you have the celestial appearance and your appearance has already reached the limit of the world, you can't be upgraded again through beauty. Among the 10 Lord Talents, other than beauty and peach luck, Zhou upgraded the other Lord Talents to Diamond Tier. As for why only these two had not been upgraded, Zhou's reason was very simple. In this chaotic world, these 2 Lord Talents were actually not very useful in war. If it was in a peaceful era, he was still willing to upgrade these 2 Lord Talents to Diamond Tier. However, in the era of the Lord of all races, White Platinum Tier was actually about the same. Therefore, Zhou chose to save higher-level Lord Talent crystal fragments in preparation for the upgrade of a good Lord Talent in the future. Unless he had too many high-level Lord Talent crystal fragments in the future, then he might increase these 2 Lord Talents again. As for now, forget it. Then, he looked at the 10 enhanced Lord Talents and could not help but smile. If 1 or 2 Lord Talents did not increase much, then, if so many Lord Talents were upgraded to the White Platinum Tier Diamond Tier, the help this would bring to the territory was probably equivalent to adding a Legendary Tier Lord Talent to the territory. It feels good to use enough Lord Talent crystal fragments. Zhou lamented. Among his 28 Lord Talents, other than the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent, the Hand of Wealth, which was a tool talent specially used to comprehend the Lord's Law, the other Lord Talents were already White Platinum Tier Diamond Tier, or even higher. Zhou was excited for a while before looking at his remaining Lord Talent crystal fragments. After the recent upgrade, he still had 646,657 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 108,229 Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 2,899 White Silver Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 2,145 Yellow Gold Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 40 White Platinum Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 44 Diamond Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 22 Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 14 Epic Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 5 Legendary Tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 6 Mythical Tier Unique Lord Talent crystal fragments. Zhou nodded. Even though he had just experienced a fierce upgrade, there were still many Lord Talent crystal fragments left. He would keep these Lord Talents for the time being to prepare for the upgrade of his advanced Lord Talent in the future. It's time to do the last thing today. Zhou stood up and walked out of the advanced Grade Lord's paradise. A huge spaceship in the form of a miniature Milky Way gradually appeared in the sky above his head. It was the Galaxy spaceship given to him by the Diamond Tier Lord Talent, Gift of the Machina. The next second, a silver starlight shone on Zhou from below the Galaxy spaceship. After the light disappeared, Zhou also disappeared. In the Galaxy, in the captain's room, Zhou sat on a silver throne and looked at the brand new sci-fi-like arrangements around him. He smiled and asked, "How's it going, my Galaxy Star God Wuxia?" As soon as he finished speaking, silver mechanical symbols appeared out of thin air one after another. Then, they quickly condensed into a silver-haired and red-eyed girl wearing silver shorts. Her skin was fair and her facial features were exquisite. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Wuxia said respectfully. Zhou sized up his body and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Flesh divine body?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Wuxia also looked at her divine body, with a hint of infatuation in her eyes. "This is a human data divine body that His Excellency the Machina God Tier personally created for me. Even though it looks like a flesh and blood divine body, it's actually filled with the technological wisdom crystals of data life technology." Zhou raised his eyebrows. Wuxia's data life divine body was actually personally created by the Machina God Tier. That was one of the 10 Master God Tiers like the Goddess of Life. No wonder the Diamond Tier Gift of the Machina allowed his diplomatic relations with the Machina to reach the alliance level. Which Machina race faction would dare not to treat them as alliance-level lord factions with the highest level of Master God tier backing them. At the thought of this, he opened the activity icon of the King of 10,000 Kings and opened the Join the Faction option. Indeed, he found the Machina Races faction inside. Moreover, this Machina Race faction already had a Machina Race Beginner Kingdom faction called Gita. Moreover, the Alliance's diplomacy relationship had already reached the Alliance level and was ranked ahead of the Night Empire and the Elven Empire. Gita Kingdom? Isn't this the mechanical kingdom where the ultimate lord, Zhou went? Zhou thought to himself. It seemed that his diplomatic relationship with the Machina race could only be officially obtained by him or his subordinates coming into contact with this kingdom. It was impossible for him to directly obtain the diplomacy of all the Machina race lord factions with just his lord talent. He shook his head in his heart and did not care. He looked at Wuxia. Come on. Let me see how different you are from before after becoming a god. He smiled. His Majesty will see. Zhou nodded and told him to go to the Gita Kingdom where the ultimate lord, Zhou was. Wuxia smiled and activated the Galaxy spaceship, flying towards a spatial teleportation array. After arriving at the spatial teleportation array, Zhou used this place to head to the Gold Merchant Lord's territory. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 679 The Speed of the Galaxy. Gita Kingdom. Myriad Merchant City. Beside the spatial teleportation array, the Gold Merchant Lord was leading more than 100 territory officials to stand there respectfully, looking expectantly in the direction of the spatial teleportation array. At this moment, the spatial teleportation array suddenly lit up with a silver-white light. Then, a huge galaxy-shaped spaceship appeared above the teleportation array out of thin air. Greetings, Your Majesty. When the Gold Merchant Lord and the others saw this, they immediately said respectfully and fanatically. The next second, a figure appeared out of thin air outside the spaceship. It was Zhou. He looked at the Gold Merchant Lord and the others below and nodded slightly. You guys can go back. This king is just passing by. I won't stay here. He said. Yes. The Gold Merchant Lord and the others naturally did not dare to have any objections. Zhou did not say anything else when he saw this. He used spatial teleportation to return to the spaceship and let the starry night fly quickly northwest. Did you notice that the spaceship His Majesty rode on this time is different? It seems to be more advanced. Perhaps His Majesty's territory has developed a higher-level spaceship. I wonder when I can have a spaceship too. What are you dreaming about? Even the most ordinary black ghost needs hundreds of diamond-tier mist cores. Why do you want to buy a spaceship? If you want to experience a spaceship, can't you just go to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and buy a plane ticket? I heard that His Majesty is going to build an airport in our places in the future. I wonder if it's true. It should be true. The ministers discussed animatedly. The Gold Merchant Lord smiled when she heard their discussion. His Majesty's strength has increased again. He sighed inwardly when he thought of the spaceship that was even more sci-fi than a sci-fi movie. 5 minutes later, in the Galaxy spaceship, Zhou was sitting on a silver throne with his eyes closed. His constitution was strong. Even though he had played the virtual game all night yesterday, not only did this not make him feel even more tired, but it was also equivalent to resting, gradually restoring his state to its peak. At this moment he closed his eyes to rest. It was not because his eyes were tired from watching the game. He was just thinking about how to develop in the future. Your Majesty, we have arrived at the Gita Kingdom. At this moment, Zhou heard Wuxia's voice. He opened his eyes with a very surprised expression. We're here. Yes, Wuxia said respectfully. The flying distance between the Myriad Merchant City and the Gita Kingdom is about 5,816 million kilometers. This flight took a total of 6 minutes and 54 seconds. Zhou's mouth fell open. After a long time, he came back to his senses. In other words, the galaxy's flying speed is 50 billion kilometers an hour? He quickly calculated the result in shock. Yes, Your Majesty. Wuxia's voice was as usual. Zhou looked shocked. As expected of the diamond tier gift of the Machina, The speed of a spaceship that had increased by 3 major levels was extraordinary. This was 50 times faster than the previous Starry Night. Yes. What right did a white silver tier spaceship have to scam a diamond tier spaceship? Moreover, it was a spaceship whose functions had all reached the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Such a configuration was not a problem to say that the Galaxy was a low-tier deity level elementary grade spaceship, wearing the skin of a diamond tier advanced grade spaceship. A smile appeared on his face. Then, he thought of something and asked curiously, I remember that you also have a low-tier deity level dark universe travel function. How fast will you be if you use dark universe travel function? If the Galaxy activates the dark universe travel function, its speed will reach 100 times the speed of light, 21. 6 times normal sailing speed. When you reported her data truthfully, Zhou clicked his tongue. Then he was secretly happy. 100 times the speed of light. That was 1,080 billion kilometers per hour. At this speed, he would not have to consider whether he was too far away if he wanted to go anywhere in the high continent in the future. No matter how far away it was, they would eventually arrive after letting the Galaxy fly for a day and night. In the future, I won't have to rely on any location teleportation scrolls or random teleportation scrolls to go further. Zhou lamented. A moment later, he came back to his senses and remembered why he was here. Thinking of this, Zhou immediately stood up from the throne and activated exterior mode. Then, he saw a kingdom that was different from common sense appear in front of him, revealing the tip of the iceberg. Machina Race Kingdom, get a kingdom. Zhou looked at the scene in front of him and thought of the information given to him by the Ultimate Lord. Zhou, get a kingdom. This was an intermediate kingdom established by the Machina race. It had more than 500 million Machina race subjects in its territory. In terms of numbers, this was a kingdom with a relatively large population of subjects. However, the Gita kingdom knew, among the 500 million Machina race subjects, there were only more than 10 million Machina race life forms. The remaining 500 million Machina race subjects were just lifeless machines. It was equivalent to a bionic human among humans. In fact, because the classification of the Machina race was very strict, these lifeless mechanical subjects might even be inferior to bionics. If a war began and they were in a life-and-death situation, the Machina race life forms would throw these mechanical subjects out as cannon fodder without hesitation. It was rational and cold. This was also a common characteristic of the Machina race. Is this the city built by the mechanical race? Zhou's gaze was focused on the city in front of him. This was a huge mechanical city, made up of all kinds of machinery. The technologically bright silver was its main color. All kinds of neon lights filled the city, rendering it like the future cyberpunk-style world. All kinds of mechanical life forms walked in the city like a part on a gear, emitting a sense of order. Other than that, there were also some subjects of the other races who lived here. They seemed to have reached a special harmonious relationship, and did not look like they were in conflict. At this moment, a silver flying saucer-shaped aircraft flew over. Zhou did not do anything. When the silver aircraft flew in front of him, a virtual image was projected above the aircraft. It was the Ultimate Lord Zhou. At this moment, he was in a mechanical palace with mechanical servants serving him. He looked to be in a pretty good situation. Looks like you're doing well. Zhou smiled. The Ultimate Lord shook his head. Follow the iDisc reconnaissance robot. Zhou nodded. Honorable guest, please follow me. At this moment, the frisbee that the Ultimate Lord Zhou called an iDisc robot suddenly emitted a mechanical voice. Zhou nodded. Then, he followed the iDisc robot and flew towards the mechanical city in front of him. This is one of the yellow gold tier regional cities of our Gita Kingdom, Silver Button City. Honorable guest, you can come to our place as a guest anytime in the future. The iDisc robot flew in front and led the way, not forgetting to introduce the city to Zhou. Zhou nodded and did not say anything else. Chapter 680 Apocalypse Satellite 9. The Era of the Data Civilization. Soon they stopped in front of a mechanical palace. A machine and a person walked into the palace one after another. Soon they saw the ultimate lord, Zhou, waiting for them. Zhou was a little surprised when he saw him. "You're already an extraordinary tier advance grade?" "MHM." The ultimate lord, Zhou, nodded and gestured for the iDisc robot to leave. After it flew away, the ultimate lord, Zhou, said to him, "I temporarily borrowed half of the Machina race's military strength in the other party's kingdom, at the price of promising the king of the Gita kingdom that I would help him research a few war technologies in the future. At the same time, I shared the total database of the Gita kingdom. I obtained a large amount of computing power and a large amount of promotion energy through the Grand Unified Core Energy. This allowed me to advance to the extraordinary tier advance grade in a short period of time. In the future, I should be able to continue improving until I reach the epic tier advance grade. Only then will my improvement speed slow down." Half of the Machina race's troops. Zhou raised his eyebrows. "Does the king of the Gita kingdom trust you so much? My main body is the Machina race, and the friendship behind the gift of the Machina represents the Machina race. In addition, I've signed the core contract procedure. There's basically no possibility of harming each other. That's why King Gita trusts me so much," Ultimate Lord Zhou explained. Zhou nodded. Then he smiled. "By the way, I've already upgraded the gift of the Machina to Diamond Tier Lord talent. The Starry Knight has all been upgraded to a higher level galaxy. His diplomatic relations with the Machina race have also increased from their previous friendship to the alliance level. The Gita kingdom should already know this. They'll send another galaxy over later. It should be useful to your situation in the Machina race," he said. "Okay." The ultimate lord, Zhou nodded. It was more than useful. With this witness spaceship that represented alliance-level diplomatic relations, in the future, its situation in the Machina race could be described as like a fish in water. "Oh yes, I already know why you're here. According to the information I obtained from you, you should be able to steadily resolve this crisis. I still have a reason to stay here, so I won't go back with you, but you can take some gadgets with you," the ultimate Lord Zhou said. Then, he took out a silver ring and handed it to Zhou. Zhou took it and entered it with his consciousness. Then he was stunned. What is this?" Zhou said in surprise. 10 legendary tier elementary grade Apocalypse Satellite 9. As well as the corresponding satellite launch base, satellite maintenance base, satellite recovery base, satellite manufacturing base, satellite robot factory, and 10,000 Apocalypse satellite mechanical engineers. With this batch of facilities and staff, the future satellite launch, recovery, manufacturing, and restoration can be properly resolved. Apocalypse satellite? It's Lord Father's unfinished loot? Zhou thought for a moment and remembered. The ultimate Lord Zhou nodded. After obtaining the computing power, big data, and promotion energy here, I upgraded the original extraordinary tier elementary grade Apocalypse Satellite 4 to legendary tier elementary grade 9 through my ultimate algorithm, true simulation, and super calculation. These 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9, as a high-altitude attack satellite building, its range is 100 million kilometers. With the legendary tier elementary grade Apocalypse laser cannon, it can instantly kill all life forms below the legendary tier elementary grade in the range. Moreover, it can accumulate full power attack charging every 60 seconds when there's enough energy. Apart from that, it also has a satellite reconnaissance function. It can observe any enemy within the attack range and determine who is the greatest threat based on the energy fluctuations. This way we can hit accurately. They should be useful to you in the upcoming war, the ultimate Lord Zhou said. It works. It's too useful. Zhou's eyes lit up when he heard that. He looked at the 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9 as if they were treasures. He had to deal with hundreds of millions of enemies tomorrow. It would definitely be very difficult to find the other party's general among so many enemies and take the head of the enemy general. Even if he could find the enemy general through the Eye of the Heaven's anger, it was not easy to break through the enemy's obstruction and kill the enemy general inside. However, it was different with this Apocalypse Satellite 9. They could directly launch a laser attack from a high altitude. No matter how many people there were, they could still target them. Would his soldiers dare to block it? He might not be able to withstand it even if he died. This was the advantage of laser strike. Zhou chuckled and put the mechanical ring on his finger. Then he asked, "What else do you plan to do by staying here? Study the war technology you agreed to?" "More than that. I also plan to rely on the computing power here to continue climbing the technology level of the Grand Unified Core Energy. Also, there's not only one mechanical kingdom here. There are also many small mechanical lord factions nearby. I plan to take them all down and become a subordinate of my computing power so that I can bring them back to the territory in the future. The computational power of the Gita kingdom is ultimately borrowed. Apart from that, I have another purpose. This is the greatest reason why I'm staying here," the ultimate lord Zhou said. "What is it?" Zhou was curious. "I discovered a very useful and interesting incomplete technology in the database of the Gita kingdom. It's mixed virtual reality technology. After I complete and popularize this mixed reality technology, our territory can enter the mixed virtual reality era." The ultimate lord Zhou said. Zhou's eyes lit up. Mixed virtual reality era. This sounded a little complicated. However, it actually had another name in the Machina race. The era of data civilization. Living beings who lived in the era of the data civilization were like living in a game world. Everything could understand each other's information by checking the data. In this data environment, no matter what he did, his efficiency would increase greatly. Life forms could even understand their improvement by observing their data. It was also because they knew how much they had improved and why. From there, they would be more motivated, methodical, and efficient in learning and improvement. Life forms could even find ways to improve faster from big data through the internet, thereby allowing them to improve better. In the online novels of the Cerulean planet and Earth, there was often a type of protagonist who learned everything quickly because he had obtained the proficiency panel. Then, he would leap into the sky and have everything. However, in the eyes of the data civilization, this proficiency panel was only an incomplete data panel. Only the proficiency panel and the perfect teaching data resource could be equivalent to the learning effect of an individual's life in the data civilization. The only thing stronger than the data panel might be the magical learning effect of the proficiency panel in the novel. If my Blazing Sun Kingdom enters the era of mixed virtual reality, the development speed of my territory will be 10 times, or even 100 times faster. The more Zhou thought about it, the more excited he became. Chapter 681 Virtual Reality Game Helmet. How long will it take you to develop a complete mixed virtual reality technology? He came back to his senses and immediately asked. Mixed virtual reality technology is a standard technology, even in the Machina race. I have the ultimate algorithm, true simulation and super calculation, but I can only guarantee that I can develop it in a year. Moreover, it's useless for me to develop it alone. If we want the territory to completely enter the era of mixed virtual reality, the basic construction of the territory has to be done well. For example, mixed virtual reality satellites, mixed virtual reality signal towers, Earth web. You can say, only by modifying the entire territory can we welcome the era of mixed virtual reality. Not for the time being. Unless you can capture the Lord faction of a high-level mechanical civilization and transplant all the results of their civilization. This will be much easier. You can save at least 90% of your time. The ultimate Lord Zhou said. Zhou could not help but be disappointed. A year. Then it seemed that he would not need it for the time being. However, when he heard the other party say that he had plundered the results of a high-level mechanical civilization and transplanted them all, he could not help but fall into deep thought. It seemed like he could do it. However, he needed to develop to enough strength. At the very least, he would only dare to plot against a technological civilization of that level when he could independently conquer an empire-level lord faction comparable to the Elven Empire. Before he had that strength, he should develop his territory obediently and not think too much about it. At this moment, 2 black items were thrown over by the ultimate lord, Zhou. Zhou subconsciously took it and realized that it was 2 ordinary black helmets. He asked curiously, "What are these?" Virtual reality game helmet. A scrap technology unearthed from mixed reality virtual technology. I created about 300,000 virtual games myself, including RPG, ARP, RPG, FPS, multiplayer online battle arena, RAC, pixel adventure, war, immortal cultivation, combat, tower defense, elimination, and various other types of games. Take it back and play with it. The ultimate lord, Zhou said. Zhou, am I a child? Why do I have to bring it back to play? Maybe old Zhou will like it. Just as Zhou was about to emphasize that he was no longer a child, the ultimate lord, Zhou, said slowly, "All right, I'll bring it back and try it on old Zhou." Zhou obediently put away the 2 helmets. Then, Zhou chatted with the ultimate lord for a while before leaving. He returned to the territory of the gold merchant lord, and returned to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Blazing Sun Kingdom. After Zhou returned, he immediately went to the lord's shop. "Old Zhou, look what I brought for us." Zhou stood in front of the counter and said excitedly to Zhou Qingmin. At this moment Zhou Qingmin was knitting. He was stunned when he heard this. Then, he stood up and came in front of Zhou. He saw the 2 helmets in Zhou's hands. "Why did you bring the helmet over?" Zhou Qingmin said in surprise. "You don't know it." Zhou was even more surprised. "I'm your lord talent creation. Most of my knowledge depends on your experience. If you don't know me, there's a high chance that I won't know you either." Zhou Qingmin rolled his eyes at him. Zhou scratched his head. Well, if the ultimate lord Zhou did not tell him that this was a virtual helmet, he would probably think that this was just a normal helmet. This is a virtual reality game helmet. You can play virtual games. Do you know about virtual games? The kind that is 100% realistic in online novels. Zhou said. There's such a good thing. Zhou Qingmin's eyes lit up. Quick, bring it in. Okay. Zhou took the helmet and entered the shop. At the same time, at Li Ya's residence. At this moment, Li Ya was reading in the study. At this moment, Yu Qiao knocked on the door and walked in. My lady. Young master, he went to play games again. Yu Qiao said helplessly. Li Ya could not help but sigh faintly. She turned to look at herself in the mirror. Had her charm decreased? She became suspicious. The next day, in the lord shop, Zhou and Zhou Qingmin were each wearing a black helmet and lying on a recliner. Their expressions kept changing. Some were excited, some were disappointed, and some were helpless. A moment later, the 2 of them suddenly cursed in unison. Then they took off the virtual game helmet. Why is there anti-addiction? Zhou Qingmin stood up cursing. Then, a very indignant expression appeared on his face. Zhou was also speechless. Maybe the ultimate lord subconsciously made it addictive. He guessed. Zhou Qingmin could not help but be speechless. He never expected that he would be punished by anti-indulgence, even though he was probably in his 50s or 60s, according to the physical age of Earthlings. Then, the 2 of them came back to their senses and looked at each other. They could see the excitement in each other's eyes. This virtual game is too fun. Especially that Legend of the Sword Immortal. It's really good to play. I drew a golden immortal tier sword immortal on my first try. Samsara is fine too, but it's much more fun without teammates. The Western fantasy game, Dragon Blood Continent, works too. The 2 of them discussed the games inside excitedly like 2 children addicted to games. This virtual helmet can be manufactured in large quantities later. It's definitely a money-making tool. Not only can I escape from reality, but I can also be happy in the game. Who can resist charging money? Zhou Qingmin suggested. Zhou could not help but think. Even though he had only played for a while, he could feel the astonishing potential behind the virtual game. Just as Zhou Qingmin had said, if he could fully develop its potential, the missed cores he could earn every day might even be comparable to or even surpass the missed cores provided to him every day by the monster ranches. I can give it a try. Zhou nodded. Then hurry up and do this. In some virtual games, having teammates and not having teammates are simply 2 different games. Zhou Chengmin's eyes lit up. As a small shop owner, he naturally wouldn't consider earning Miss Cores at all. What he cared about was his gaming experience. Zhou nodded and did not waste his breath. He first called out to the Ultimate Lord, Zhou through his personal terminal, and asked him to wear the virtual helmet technology to him, through their personal terminals. Then, he began to call for Wuxia. Your Majesty, Wuxia is here. A mini image of Wuxia appeared on his personal terminal. At this moment, Wuxia was wearing a Gothic-made outfit, and looked very obedient. Analyze the technology of this virtual helmet, and promote it on a large scale. All the resources needed will be provided by the territory. Also tell Prime Minister Zheng. If this virtual game has the potential to create a large amount of wealth, we can strongly support it, and even promote it to the people of foreign races overseas. Zhou said, Yes, Your Majesty. Mini Wuxia nodded and disappeared. Chapter 682 Three Goods. Looks like you'll have many like-minded friends in the future. Zhou Chengmin could not help but sigh when he saw Zhou do all this. Then as the greatest contributor, can you try your best to serve better goods in the future? Zhou looked at him faintly. Even though the new goods in the past 2 days were not bad, they seemed a little normal compared to before. Okay, Zhou Chengmin grinned. Let's see what today's new goods are first. Zhou shook his head. Then he went to the counter and looked down. He did not see a box containing new goods. Only I, the owner of the Lord shop, can obtain the new goods. Zhou Chengmin seemed to have seen through Zhou's thoughts. He chuckled and came to the counter. He reached under the counter and took out 3 new boxes from nothing under Zhou's own eyes. Zhou did not say anything, but he dismissed some unrealistic thoughts. He reached out and opened the 3 boxes. The first box contained a book. Zhou had thought that it was an ordinary skill book. However, when he opened it, he was immediately stunned. Divine Art Great Resurrection Spell. Divine Art Name. Great Resurrection Spell. Divine Art Quality. Special. Skill Description. At the cost of consuming a Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystal, recall the soul of the deceased from the netherworld and reconstruct the body, giving it rebirth. Spellcast Prerequisite 1. The resurrected person's strength is equal to or lower than the caster. Spellcast Prerequisite 2. The Great Resurrection spell can only be used once a day. Spellcast Prerequisite 3. You need to use the deceased's belongings as resurrection items. Spellcast Prerequisite. This Great Resurrection spell cannot revive God's spirits. Zhou looked at the Divine Art thoughtfully. This skill should be the Great Resurrection spell mastered by an archbishop. Otherwise, if it was the Great Resurrection spell that Caro Moeli had mastered, it should be able to revive God's spirits. Without a doubt, the Great Resurrection spell on anyone was definitely an ability that countless lords of all races, and even local lord factions dreamed of at the current stage. This was obvious from the humans' reaction to Zhou mastering the resurrection ability. However, this Great Resurrection spell was relatively ordinary with Zhou. There were 20 archbishops who had mastered the Great Resurrection spell in the shelter of the Goddess of Life alone after all. To him, the Great Resurrection spell was not rare at all. Forget it. There's no harm in having more skills. Zhou made up his mind to buy this good. Then he looked at the next good. Then the corners of his mouth twitched. Divine Art Small Resurrection Spell. Divine Art Name. Small Resurrection Spell. Divine Art Quality. Special. Skill Description. Resurrect living beings that have died for less than 24 hours at the price of consuming 1 Pious Tier Faith Divine Crystal. Spellcast Prerequisite 1. The level of the target's fate and strength does not exceed the number of casters. Spellcast Prerequisite 2. The target's physical body is 70% complete, and his brain and heart are not destroyed. Could today's Lord shop be exclusively from the shelter? Zhou asked doubtfully. Then he looked at the next item. It was a bottle of low-tier advanced grade divine water of life. The item description was created by Caro Moeli. It could restore lost vitality to existences below the advanced grade of the low-tier deity level. It's really exclusively from the shelter. Zhou had a headache. But fortunately, each of these 3 goods was also very good. There were no trash goods. Zhou took a deep breath and looked up at Zhou Qingmin. How much are these 3 goods worth? The Great Resurrection spell is worth 10,000 legendary tier mist cores. Small Resurrection spell is worth 100 legendary tier mist cores. Low tier advanced grade Divine Water of Life is worth 1,000 legendary tier mist cores. Zhou Qingmin said. So expensive. Even though Zhou could afford it, he still felt his heart ache. There's a reason why it's expensive, Zhou Qingmin said seriously. He clearly agreed with the value of these 3 goods. Zhou could not find any reason to refute. He could only take out 11,100 legendary tier mist cores to buy the 3 goods. Then, he did not go anywhere else. He directly learned the Great Resurrection spell and Small Resurrection spell in front of Zhou Qingmin. Then, he did not go anywhere else. He directly learned the Great Resurrection spell and Small Resurrection spell in front of Zhou Qingmin. Just as Zhou was about to leave, Zhou Qingmin's voice sounded from behind. No, I have to rest for a day. Next time. My wife is still waiting for me at home. Zhou waved his hand without turning his head. He was not obsessed with games. It was time to go back and accompany his delicate wife. What's so fun about having a wife? Zhou Qingmin complained. Zhou returned to his room and washed up. After eating the breakfast that Aaliyah had personally made, he walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and came to the Gate of Summoning. He looked at the huge Gate of Summoning in front of him and chanted the summoning in his heart. The next second, the Gate of Summoning suddenly lit up with a bright white light. Then a large number of subjects walked out. After spending 100 extraordinary tier mist cores to accelerate, the 10,500 new subjects quickly walked out of the Gate of Summoning. Greetings, my lord! X 10,500. The 10,500 new subjects said respectfully. Welcome to Blazing Sun City. Zhou nodded and smiled. Then he asked all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned a total of 336 professionals this time. Among them were an extraordinary tier elementary grade martial master, an extraordinary tier elementary grade explorer, an extraordinary tier elementary grade carpenter, an extraordinary tier elementary thunder elemental archmage, an extraordinary tier elementary radiant mage, an extraordinary tier elementary grade blacksmith, and an extraordinary tier elementary grade jewelry appraiser. The rest were life professionals and combat professionals below extraordinary tier. Zhou nodded slightly and asked the officials beside him to bring them to their respective places of work in life. After that, Zhou called Bai Yin, Wuxia, and the others to gather all the territory soldiers outside the city gate. A moment later, at the city gate, more than 47 million soldiers were gathered here. Zhou did not call the soldiers of the Star Alliance over. There were too many monks, and too little meat after all. Muga's 250 million ranch monsters sounded like a lot. However, if it was distributed to more than 47 million soldiers, each soldier could only be distributed 5 to 6 monsters at most. Under such circumstances, the ranch monsters in Mugu should be provided to his territory soldiers first. Your Majesty, all the soldiers have gathered. At this moment, Bai Yin quickly walked over and said respectfully. Zhou nodded and walked to the temporary platform to look at the soldiers below. The soldiers below also looked at the tall and handsome man on the platform with fanatical reverence. Soldiers, I'm sure you know the enemy we're dealing with today. That's the strongest Scarlet Legion from the Scarlet Empire called the Feidu Empire. It will be the strongest enemy we have faced since we set off. Are you afraid? Zhou's tiger eyes seemed to be burning with flames as he looked down at the tens of millions of soldiers in front of him. Chapter 683 Sharpening the Blade. Not afraid. Not afraid. Not afraid. The soldiers let out earth-shattering roars. So what if the enemy was stronger? They were not even afraid of death. So why would they be afraid of powerful enemies? What they were most afraid of was a terrifying future, where they could not fulfill the Lord's expectations and protect the lives of their citizens. Good, since you're not afraid, we'll get you guys to carry out a small drill first to sharpen the weapon in your hands. Otherwise, you'll be so afraid that you'll think your saber is blunt when you see that terrifying enemy on the battlefield. Zhou said in a low voice. Mugu, he said. I'm here. Mugu appeared out of thin air 2 to 3 steps behind Zhou. Bai Yun and the others looked at Mugu and His Majesty in surprise, not knowing what they wanted to do. In fact, they were already shocked when they first arrived outside the Blazing Sun Kingdom. This was because they realized that the vast number of monster ranches that surrounded the Blazing Sun Kingdom and made it look like a monster king had actually disappeared overnight. Even though their vision had widened a lot because of the disappearance of the monster ranch, in the hearts of Bai Yun and the other generals, the huge number of ranch monsters was also a natural defense line to protect the capital of the Blazing Sun. Now that this natural defense line had disappeared, as generals of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, they were naturally very worried. They had wanted to ask Mugu what was going on, but could not find him, so they could only give up for the time being. They did not expect that Mugu was by His Majesty's side. Bai Yun and the others naturally did not know. After Zhou found out that Mugu had already put all the monster ranches into the Ranchland continent, he arranged for him to stay in the Advanced Grade Lord's Paradise. Bai Yun and the others had been looking for Mugu at the original monster ranch. Naturally, they could not find them. Open the Ranchland continent and sharpen the knives for my soldiers. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, Zhou said calmly, seeing that the time was about right. Yes, Your Majesty. Mugu smiled. Then, he stretched out his right hand and saw a mini continent appear in his palm. It was the Ranchland continent. Please don't resist. I will personally bring you to the place where His Majesty said you can sharpen your weapons. Mugu looked at the more than 40 million elite soldiers in front of him and said softly. Even though his voice was soft, under the power of his world deity position slot, it easily reached the ears of everyone present. Qi Xiantian, Suan, Guoqiao, and the other territory experts immediately looked at this young man who usually did not perform well. Immortal? No, this aura seems to be the heaven-splitting true immortal. Qi Xiantian was a little surprised. He was from an immortal Dao sect, and quickly saw through Mugu's specialness. Suan also looked at him in surprise. Guoqiao subconsciously took out his axe and looked at Mugu eagerly. Then, he thought of something and glanced at Zhou, who was beside Mugu. He put away his weapon regretfully. At the same time, after Mugu finished speaking, no one made a sound. The scene was terrifyingly quiet. Mugu smiled. He could not help but praise the discipline of His Majesty's army. He raised his right hand high. Then the mini-continent in his hand flew into the sky and stopped more than 10,000 meters in the sky. The next second, boom! A vast amount of scarlet fog was released from the Ranchland continent and quickly enveloped the more than 40 million soldiers on the ground below. Under the cover of the scarlet fog, all the soldiers quickly disappeared. In less than a moment, in front of the city gate, all living beings, including Zhou and Mugu, disappeared into the scarlet fog. On a scarlet continent, an incomparably huge illusory scarlet sun stood in the sky, emitting a majestic scarlet light that illuminated the entire continent. A vast amount of scarlet fog was constantly derived with the illumination of the scarlet light, causing scarlet fog monsters to be born and become stronger from the fog. Roar! Woo-woo, gob-gob. All kinds of monster cries spread throughout the entire continent. After Zhou and more than 40 million soldiers were teleported to the Ranchland continent, they saw this scene. I almost thought I was at the Crimson Overlord's base camp. Guoqiao said after holding it in for a long time when he saw the scene in front of him. The others nodded in agreement. Ahem. I can also create life forms in the scarlet fog, so the world I created is indeed a little like the world of the Crimson Overlord. But am indeed His Majesty's true subordinate. Mugu coughed lightly and solemnly declared his faction. There's no time to lose. Let's start sharpening the weapons. Zhou did not waste his breath and said directly. Mugu nodded. Then he flew into the sky and looked at the more than 40 million soldiers below. Next, I'll teleport you to the entrances of the various monster ranches on this ranch continent. When the time comes, there will be monster ranchers who manage the various monster ranches to guide you into the monster ranch to kill monsters. After all the ranch monsters are cleared, Everyone will teleport back to His Majesty and leave this ranchland continent together. Everyone, is there anything you don't understand? No. More than 40 million soldiers roared in unison. Mugu nodded. Then he waved his right hand. The more than 40 million soldiers on the ground turned into 500 scarlet streams of light and flew towards the 500 monster ranches distributed on the ranch continent. Soon earth-shattering battle cries sounded from the monster ranches in the ranchland continent. On Zhou's side, Bai Yun and the others had the intention to come over and ask what was going on with this strange monster continent. Ask Mugu. As the owner of this ranchland continent, he knows better than me. Zhou waved his hand. Seeing this, everyone went to surround Mugu. Zhou also took out the Bodhi Supreme. Kid, do you have any questions for me? Bodhi Supreme's lazy voice sounded. I saw Her Excellency the Goddess of Life previously. She said that I walked the right path of the Lord's law, but my heart was wrong. Do you know what Her Excellency the Goddess means? Zhou immediately asked. If he did not resolve this problem, he would not be at ease comprehending the Lord's law in the future. Of course I do, Bodhi Supreme said proudly. There's nothing in the myriad worlds that I don't know. But, its tone changed and it smiled. Do you really want to ask? Can't I ask? Zhou frowned. Of course I can ask. I can also tell you the answer. However, there are some answers in this world that you will only feel deeply when you figure it out. Only then will you truly benefit greatly. If I answer for you, you might lose these benefits. When you understand in the future, I'm afraid you'll hate me. Bodhi Supreme said with a smile in his voice. Zhou was stunned. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 684 500 million soldiers. After a long silence, Zhou shook his head. Never mind. In that case, I'll figure it out myself. A wise choice. Bodhi Supreme praised. Zhou did not say anything. He felt that this Bodhi Supreme was not bad. If it was some greedy fellow, why would it care if he would lose something in the future? It might say it without thinking in order to obtain the knowledge in front of it. He did not expect Bodhi Supreme to not be greedy. Moreover, it was a little kind. He shook his head and didn't think too much about it. Half an hour later, with the cooperation of more than 40 million soldiers and 10,000 monster shepherds, the 250 million fog monsters were all destroyed. Then they cleaned up the battlefield. Even though there were many corpses of the ranch monsters, fortunately, the Blazing Sun Kingdom had also obtained a huge number of Lutz blast furnaces, after obtaining a few enemy kingdoms in a row. There was no lack of epic tier and legendary tier high-level Lutz blast furnaces. Therefore, with the help of all the soldiers, the corpses of the 250 million ranch monsters were all extracted into Lutz in less than a moment, under the effect of the titles of King of Lutz and Strongest Lord. In terms of the mist cores, he had obtained a total of more than 36 billion green bronze tier mist cores, more than 15 billion white silver tier mist cores, more than 840 million yellow gold tier mist cores, more than 717 million white platinum tier mist cores, more than 680 million diamond tier mist cores, more than 410 million extraordinary tier mist cores, and more than 80 million epic tier mist cores. There were also 375 billion king of yellow gold recruitment books, 50 billion king of yellow gold class change certificates, 300 million violent storm spirit recruitment books, 300 million violent storm spirit class change certificates, 14,100 fragments of the proof of legion, 110 million true faith tier scarlet crystals, over 85 million pious tier scarlet crystals, more than 53 million fanatic tier scarlet crystals, 132 holy spirit tier scarlet crystals, 10 million iron-eating bear pet eggs, 35 million fear falcon wings, and fear falcon 3 radar, more than 5 billion units of original gold. As for the other unimportant spoils of war, there was no need to elaborate. Zhou looked at the number of recruitment books he had obtained today, and his eyes widened. His breathing could not help but quicken. Just the mist core alone, he had obtained gains worth nearly 13 million legendary tier mist cores. In terms of soldier-type recruitment books, he had even obtained a total of 450 million soldier-type recruitment books. He only had more than 47 million soldiers under his command, excluding the soldiers under the Star Alliance Master. The gains from the Monster Ranch today directly increased the total number of his soldiers by more than 9 times. It was not in vain that I spent so many high-level Lord Talent crystal fragments to upgrade the Monster Ranch from white platinum tier to extraordinary tier. I've made a killing leveling up, Zhou muttered excitedly. He knew that with this qualitative change, his development speed would greatly increase in the future. No, now that I can add so many recruits every day, my development strategy and plan will have to change in the future. Zhou thought. With so many soldiers around in the future, he would no longer have to be too careful when doing things. Then he took these 450 million soldier-type recruitment books to the Gate of Summoning and threw them all in. Then he spent 100 extraordinary tier mist cores to summon them all in one go. Soon, a total of 450 million recruits appeared in front of Zhou. Since there were too many people, the wide venue specially reserved for the new recruits was filled. Bai Yin had no choice but to come over again to coordinate the order like yesterday. Zhou looked at the endless number of recruits in front of him, and the smile on his face became even more obvious. Even though these recruits were only Black Iron tier elementary grade novices, however, with the blessing of the epic tier War Master God tier, they would definitely have a promising future. My strength just now is 47,547,748 soldiers. Now that there are these 450 million new recruits, my total military strength is 497,547,748 new recruits. In addition to the more than 26 million soldiers of the Star Alliance, the total number of soldiers I can control has reached 524 million. Zhou took a deep breath. His expression was filled with unconcealable excitement. One had to know that there were only about 1 billion Scarlet Monster soldiers surrounding the Night Empire. And this quantity, Zhou was even confident that he could reach it tomorrow. Why was this still the Night Empire's faction quests? In 2 days, I can lead my troops to destroy all the Scarlet Monster soldiers surrounding the Night Empire. Zhou suddenly felt ambitious. Actually, when he received the Night Empire's faction quests, he felt that the chances of the Night Empire obtaining help from the Divine Sword Empire were very slim. They were all from the 5 great empires of the human race after all. Now that the calamity of all races covered the entire High Continent, and even the myriad worlds, the Night Empire was already in such a dangerous situation. The Divine Sword Empire's situation would definitely be better than the Night Empire, right? Not necessarily, but very likely. Zhou opened all the spatial teleportation arrays and successfully arrived at the Divine Sword Empire. When he arrived, he realized that the Divine Sword Empire was also a human empire that needed help. However, he did not think too much about it when he accepted the faction quests. After all, he had to give it a try no matter if it was possible to save the Night Empire. Even if he did not reach the hope of the Night Empire in the end, he would at least be rewarded for completing the faction quests. In short, to him, it was not a loss. His thoughts had suddenly changed. He definitely had to do faction quests. However, if he opened all the spatial teleportation arrays and realized that the Divine Sword Empire was also unable to help the Night Empire, he could completely rely on his robust military strength to resolve the crisis of the Night Empire alone. They might even be able to help the Divine Sword Empire. If he could do this, putting aside whether to resolve the current crisis of the human race, his faction points would definitely increase. Moreover, his vast number of recruits could also use this opportunity to increase their strength rapidly. Zhou thought for a long time before coming back to his senses. He would think about it in the future. Let's resolve the current crisis first. At this moment in Zhou's heart, the Smelting Yin Scarlet Army was no longer a crisis that made him feel difficult. What he needed to consider now was how to minimize their losses to obtain this victory when they were confident of winning. On the other side, Feng Luo and the other generals also saw the 450 million new recruits in front of them. They looked at each other with blank eyes, feeling that the scene in front of them was even a little unreal. This was 450 million new recruits. Among the empire-level lord factions of the human race, there were about this level of military strength. But the key was, they were only a human beginner kingdom that had just been established a few days ago. The newly built beginner kingdom had soldiers comparable to a beginner empire-level lord faction. Was this reasonable? Reasonable my ass. Even the supreme resistance would curse at how ridiculous it was. There are too many recruits, and their strength is only at the Black Iron tier elementary grade. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to participate in tonight's battle. Compared to the excitement of the generals as veterans, Bai Yin and Wuxia were much calmer. There were many recruits in front of him, but their strength was too low. If they were to directly line up on the battlefield, not only would they be useless against a powerful enemy like the Scarlet Army, they would probably die in large numbers. That would be better than not going to the battlefield. It was a waste of troops. I'll leave this to you. When Zhou heard this, he looked at Bai Yin and Wuxia, the two legion commanders and the deputy commander. The two of you will join forces with the other generals who have mastered military morale. Today, you will lead these recruits to train their soldiers wantonly. As for where to train my soldiers, let's go to the Night Empire. There are enough scarlet monsters there. Let's strive to increase the strength of these 450 million recruits to the white-silver tier before the flame-refining Scarlet Legion arrives tonight. As for the Dark Martial Alliance, I'll lead the troops myself. Zhou said. It was not difficult to do this with the epic tier lord talent, blessing of the war god. Yes, your majesty, Bai Yin and Wuxia said respectfully. Zhou nodded. Chapter 685 Divine Kingdom Treasure. Rob Allen becomes a god. Your majesty. At this moment, Zheng Yuanqi walked over from afar and came in front of Zhou. Refugees have arrived at our Blazing Sun Kingdom. Currently, the officials of our Blazing Sun Kingdom's various states are accepting these refugees to become subjects of our Blazing Sun Kingdom. He reported respectfully. Oh, how many refugees came today? Zhou was interested. He had a deep impression of the 76 million subjects last time. A total of 90 million subjects have come this time. Zheng Yuanqi was excited. Zhou was stunned. How many? He subconsciously asked again. 90 million. Moreover, there are more than 80 million female subjects inside. The situation with General Yuluo did not happen with them this time. They are all just refugees. Zheng Yuanqi said excitedly. After he found out that the territory had another 450 million male subjects. He was originally a little worried that the territory would return to its previous situation. Now that they saw the refugees coming so fiercely, they immediately felt much less worried. He sighed with emotion. In this world filled with war, even though extraordinary tier power was popular, it was normal for women to be as strong as men and even surpass them. However, in war, perhaps it was because men were still passionate about fighting, therefore more men died. Due to the constant deaths of men in war, the number of female subjects in most Lord Kingdom forces far exceeded the number of male subjects. Moreover, the number of male subjects left in the country was mostly old, weak, sick and young. The Blazing Sun Kingdom, on the other hand, had the Prime Minister worried about how to solve the problem of the territory's prosperity and decline every day. This could definitely be considered a strange scene among the lord factions of all races. There are even more than last time. At the same time, when Zhou heard Zheng Yuanqi's words, he could not help but mutter. Then a smile appeared on his face. He roughly knew what was going on. It was probably because the Beauty Lord talent had been upgraded to the White Platinum tier that the appearance of the territory's subjects had increased again. As a result, his territory became famous again overnight. In addition, the lord factions of the human race had probably already received news from the higher-ups of the human race and escorted the refugees to his Blazing Sun Kingdom, greatly reducing the casualties of the refugees. These two main factors, coupled with some small reasons that he might not know, caused the number of refugees heading to his territory to increase again. Settle them well. They've all come from afar. Don't disappoint them about our new home. Zhou Zhou came back to his senses and said seriously to Zheng Yuanqi, "Yes, Your Majesty." Zheng Yuanqi retracted the excitement on his face and nodded seriously. At this moment, a female figure appeared in the distance. Snowflakes floated within 10 meters of his body as he held a snow umbrella. The edge of the umbrella was slightly lowered, making he look mysterious. After walking in, she raised the edge of the umbrella, revealing her exquisite face that emitted the female charm of the ice ghost race. It was Lady Iceflower Vicky. "Your Majesty, am not late, right?" Vicky smiled. "You came back just in time." Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before smiling. "How's the construction of the Divine Kingdom?" he asked curiously. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for rewarding me with those 4 dilapidated Divine Kingdoms. With the 4 ice demon god spirits of the Ice Demon Kingdom as the foundation, the construction of my Divine Kingdom is going quite smoothly. Moreover, I've refined all their dilapidated Divine Kingdoms into a Divine Kingdom that belongs to me. As a result, even though my Divine Kingdom has just been built, it's already similar to the Divine Kingdoms of those god spirits who have become gods for 3,000 to 4,000 years." Vicky sighed. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. The 4 dilapidated Divine Kingdoms of the Ice Ghost race were of no value to him and his other subordinates. Since that was the case, then giving it to Vicky was naturally the best choice. "Your Majesty, these are the treasures I found in the 4 dilapidated Divine Kingdoms." Vicky took out a spatial ring and handed it to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou took it and read it carefully. Then, he shook his head in disappointment. Most of these treasures were low-tier deity level and mid-tier deity level medicinal herbs, minerals, and other materials. A small number were the personal collections of some god spirits, such as exquisite ice sculptures, antiques with collecting significance, letters from certain relatives. Other than that, there was nothing else of value. I knew it. What good stuff can an ice ghost god spirit that doesn't even have a few low-tier divine artifacts have? He thought. However, even so, he put away the ring. "Well done, this award is for you." Zhou Zhou took out the low-tier deity level advanced grade Divine Water of Life that he had just bought from the Lord's shop and gave it to the other party. "Thank you, Your Majesty." When Vicky saw the bottle of life divine water, she immediately took it with a surprised expression. "Your Majesty, when do we set off?" After putting away the divine water of life, she asked expectantly. He, who had just obtained the divine water of life, could not wait to show her strength to His Majesty. "There's no hurry. I have one more thing to deal with," Zhou Zhou said. A moment later at the Night Temple Lord's office. "I'm here to see the Temple Lord," Zhou Zhou said politely to the extraordinary tier knight guarding the office. "Your Excellency, unfortunately, the Temple Lord just went to the abyss an hour ago. I don't think he'll be back today." The guard knight naturally knew Zhou Zhou's name. He looked at the handsome god spirit like Zhou Zhou curiously and said politely. Zhou Zhou could not help but be stunned. What a coincidence. They were actually only an hour apart. He wanted to use the knight's sacred token to contact the other party, but when he thought about how the other party was in a dangerous place like the abyss, it would not be good if he distracted the other party. Because of him, he could only give up. "Then he'll come again next time." Zhou Zhou dismissed the idea of visiting Bai He. In any case, he was only here to look for him, because of a small matter that he did not have to be anxious about. It would not be too late to do it in the future. "Lord of the Blazing Sun, if you have something you want to deal with the Temple Lord, even though the Temple Lord is not around, you can look for the 13th Deputy Temple Lord first." The 13th Deputy Temple Lord is currently in charge of acting as the Temple Lord, while the Temple Lord is not around. The 13th Deputy Temple Lord can do what the Temple Lord can do. The guard knight kindly reminded, seeing that Zhou Zhou was about to leave. Zhou Zhou was stunned. The Night Temple had a total of 12 permanent Deputy Temple Lords. 3 of them had the strength of a high-tier deity level, while the other 9 Deputy Temple Lords also had the strength of a mid-tier deity level. He had long known this information over the past few days. When did the 13th Deputy Temple Lord appear? Someone new? Zhou took the initiative to ask without hiding his doubts. Your Excellency the Blazing Sun, you might not know this. This 13th Temple Lord was indeed newly established yesterday. Speaking of which, you know that Lord. It's His Excellency Rob Allen, the god of Silver Star Knights, who has just broken through to the God Spirit realm. The guard knight said. Zhou's eyes widened slightly. Rob Allen. That guy had broken through to the God Spirit realm. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 686 100 Books of Proof of Legion. Sir Rob Allen. When did he advance to become a God Spirit? Zhou came back to his senses and asked curiously. Just last night. The guard knight puffed out his chest proudly. When His Excellency the God of Silver Star Knights broke through to the God Spirit, it was said that the stars in the starry sky where he was were all shining brightly. The starlight illuminated an area of 1,000,000 kilometers, as if it was daytime. Especially one of the silver stars. Silver starlight descended and enveloped the God of Silver Star Knights. According to the higher-ups of the race, such a phenomenon of becoming a God Spirit is extremely rare, even in the entire history of the human God Spirits. Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. There were also many records about the phenomenon of becoming a god in his mind. If Rob's ascension phenomenon was really as the Guardian Knight had said, it would definitely be an outstanding ascension phenomenon. With such a God Spirit with such a God-tier phenomenon, as long as he had enough potential and opportunities in the future, and did not die midway, there was a high chance that he would reach the true God tier. Temple Lord by he really didn't choose the wrong disciple. Zhou thought to himself. May I ask where His Excellency the God of Silver Star Knights is? Zhou said politely. In the office of the 13th Deputy Temple Lord. Let me take you there. The guard knight took the initiative to say. That's troublesome. Zhou nodded. Your Excellency the Blazing Sun is too kind. The guard knight smiled and led Zhou to a corridor. Soon, the two of them arrived at the door of the 13th Deputy Temple Lord's office. After Zhou parted ways with the guard knight, he looked up to the right of the door. He realized that other than the 13th Deputy Temple Lord title, there was a line of words, God of Silver Star Knights below it. God of Silver Star Knights? Looks like this is Rob Allen's God Spirit Lord title. Zhou thought. Then, he knocked on the door without thinking too much. Enter. A familiar voice came from the door. Zhou pushed the door open and entered. He saw Rob Allen writing on the table. He had a serious expression, and his brush did not stop. At a glance, he really had a hint of Baihe's temperament. Zhou, Rob Allen looked up and was stunned when he saw Zhou. Then, a surprised expression immediately appeared on his face. He turned into specks of starlight and flew in front of Zhou. Then, he condensed his body again and said with a smile. I wanted to look for you today. I didn't expect to see you so soon. Looking for me? What's the matter? Zhou was stunned. Don't you know? I've already broken through to become a God Spirit. Moreover, the key item for me to break through to the God Spirit realm was provided by you. After Rob Allen finished speaking, he raised his right hand, and a starry sky divine sword that emitted specks of starlight appeared in his hand. Zhou looked at it. He realized that this was one of the divine artifacts he had traded to the human race not long ago, in order to ask the human race to protect his refugees. The Star Spirit Technique Sword. Rob Allen stroked the Star Spirit Technique Sword in his hand obsessively, as if he was looking at his lover. I'm already an advanced grade legendary tier expert. I'm just short of comprehending a complete low-tier deity-level law skill, and condensing my divine persona to achieve the God Spirit slot. However, even this last step stopped me for a long time. Until one day, I heard that the clan obtained a divine artifact that contained the law skill of the Star Law from you. After that, the clan even decided to give me the low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact that contained the Star Law, just to give me more help in breaking through to the God Spirit realm. I'm very grateful to the higher-ups of the human race who made this decision. This Star Spirit Technique sword is indeed very suitable for me. It contains the profundity of the law of stars. And my physique is also the star body constitution of the star law divine body. Therefore, my physique can be said to be extremely compatible with this divine artifact. Later on, during the process of comprehending the Star Spirit Technique sword, I naturally successfully comprehended my star law skill, thereby making up for the last gap in becoming a god. Then I successfully advanced to a god spirit. At this point, Rob Allen took a deep breath and looked up at Jojo seriously. Your Star Spirit Technique sword has helped me a lot in becoming a god. Moreover, it's a critical help. I owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, you must look for me. I'll definitely help you with all my might as long as it's not against my principles. Rob Allen was actually very smart. He understood. Other than the reason he had just mentioned, there was probably another very important reason why he could obtain this Star Spirit Technique sword. He was a friend of the Lord of the Blazing Sun, and they were friends who got along very well. It was precisely because of this relationship that the higher-ups of the human race sent the Star Spirit Technique sword to him, who had yet to become a god. Behind this behavior, he might have the intention to rope in and be good to Jojo. Jojo thought for a moment and said, I really need your help with something now. Rob Allen was stunned, as if he did not expect the time to cash in so quickly. Then, he laughed heartily. Tell me, what is it? There will be a huge battle in my territory tonight. I want to ask you for help when the time comes. Okay, I'll help you then. Rob Allen agreed without thinking. In his eyes, no matter how fast Jojo developed, his opponents would at most be some extraordinary tier, epic tier, and legendary tier enemies. He felt that this was already an overestimation in his heart. Therefore, he didn't feel that there would be any accidents if he helped him with such a small favor. So he agreed readily. I'm not done yet. Jojo was speechless. No need to say anything else. Just remind me when the time comes. I'll definitely go. I will definitely help you deal with the opponent, no matter who it is. Rob Allen said readily. Are you sure? Jojo's expression was strange. This guy had just broken through to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Why was he so arrogant? Should he tell the other party that there were high-tier deity level opponents among his enemies? Should he tell the other party that there were high-tier deity level opponents among his enemies? Since the other party was so confident, perhaps he really had a trump card to deal with them? After all, he was Baihe's last disciple and the future candidate of the Night Temple Lord. He should have such methods, right? Of course. Rob Allen nodded. Then the two of them chatted for a while. Baihe suddenly remembered that the other party seemed to be here for something. By the way, you're here for something, right? Baihe asked. There's indeed something, but it's just a small matter. Jojo flipped his right hand and saw a large stack of complete Proof of Legion appear in his hand. What's this? Rob Allen took a copy of the Proof of Legion. When he saw what it was, he looked at the Proof of Legion in his hand, and then at the thick stack of Proof of Legion in Jojo's hand. He subconsciously swallowed. Don't tell me, these are all the Proof of Legion? He said in disbelief. They're indeed all Proof of Legion. There are a total of 100 of them. Jojo told them the ultimate goal of his trip. I want to sell these Proofs of Legion to you. In the future, his monster ranch would be able to produce at least 100 Proof of Legion every day. He did not want to establish a new army for the time being. It was useless to keep renewable resources like them. Since that was the case, he might as well take it out and sell it, since he was assured that the biggest possible buyer would be the Night Temple at this stage. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 687 Low-Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade Army Formation. Small God Sura Myriad Spirit Army Formation. Epic Tier, War Enhancement Earthquake. Rob Allen looked at the Proof of Legion in his hand and suddenly asked, You should have raised a group of monsters that can drop the Proof of Legion, right? That's right. Jojo was not surprised, since this was very obvious. Rob Allen took a deep breath. Even though he had guessed the reason, he was still very surprised to see so many Proof of Legions in front of him. In the entire Human Lord faction, Other than the fact that the 5 human empires all had official empire-level armies, most of the other kingdom-level lord factions and lower-level human lord factions were actually armies that had not been recognized by the supreme will. The army they had was formed by the Lord gathering the soldiers under his command together. Then, the Lord gave them the name of the army. This was a self-built army. It was not like having an official army formation, with upgradable army buffs, and other army interface functions. As for the lords who had an official army, they had also bought the proof of legion from the territory of other high-level lord factions. It was not the proof of legion he had obtained at all. Speaking of which, this self-built army was naturally much weaker than those with official army formations. If they could have more official armies among the lord factions of the human race, if the strength of their human race did not increase much in the short term, as long as their army level increased, their human army of the same level would definitely be able to suppress, or even crush armies of the same level as other races. What to do? An army with an official organization was much stronger than an army without an official organization. At the thought of this, Rob Allen no longer hesitated. We want these 100 proof of legion. What do you want? He asked. Do you have a military formation here? The kind that can gather the strength of many people and form a higher-level combat strength? Zhou asked. In the past, the greedy wolf howling moon array could be set to be a sharp weapon of his army. However, as the strength of his soldiers continued to increase, he had more than 600 epic tier experts, and even 160,000 extraordinary tier soldiers under him now. Under such circumstances, the greedy wolf howling moon array, which could only form the highest extraordinary tier strength in the past, naturally could no longer keep up. Therefore, he needed a stronger military formation to have stronger strength. A powerful military formation? What level do you need? Rob Allen thought for a moment and asked. True God tier. Zhou probed. Rob Allen was speechless. You really dare to ask for it? We don't have it, and you can't afford it even if you have it. Zhou did not refute. He was just asking casually. What about high-tier deity level? Rob Allen shook his head. Based on the value of these 100 proof of legion, I can only give you low-tier deity level military formations. Firstly, I can't buy higher level ones. Secondly, I can't come into contact with them for the time being. But let me warn you first, even though that military formation can reach the power of the low-tier deity level intermediate grade, it will also cost a lot to build this army. How so? Zhou asked. That military formation comes from the Divine Sword Empire, and is called the Small God Sura Myriad Spirit Army Formation. It needs at least 100,000 extraordinary tier experts, 1,000 epic tier experts, or 10 legendary tier experts to activate this military formation. Moreover, we need 1 low-tier divine level intermediate grade divine crystals, or 1,000 legendary tier mist cores to activate it. Moreover, after activating it, it can only release a full-strength attack equivalent to an intermediate grade low-tier deity. After that, it needs to replenish divine crystals or mist cores before it can be activated again. We didn't actually use it many times in the war after obtaining this military formation, because this consumption is relatively high. We placed it in the treasure vault. If you need it, I can get someone to bring it over for you now, Rob Allen said. This military formation could be used without caring about consumption in desperate situations. However, there was no need to spend so many human and financial resources in ordinary wars. After all, it was not like the human race did not have low-tier deity-level experts. It was just that there were not many of them. The reason why he said all the pros and cons was also to make the other party give up. After all, judging from the consumption alone, this military formation was completely a gold mine. The cost-performance ratio was too low. Even though he was envious of the 100 points of proof of legion, he would not deliberately cheat his benefactor for this. Zhou's thoughts were different from the other parties. Even though he did not have many divine crystals, he had so many mist cores that he could not finish spending even if he wanted to. Even though his territory needed a lot of resources to invest, he had too many mist cores. His mist cores were still increasing every day on the basis of the monster ranch and the benefits of the war, even though his territory consumed some of them every day. What? Even though the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation could release the full-strength attack of a low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade powerhouse, it was a gold-devouring cave? Please give me this military formation, Jojo said seriously. Rob Allen was stunned. A moment later, Jojo played with a mini silver sword carving in his hand as he walked towards the Imperial Ancestral Temple. Wisps of faint sword energy kept spinning around the mini sword carving, looking a little strange. Formation treasure, small God Sura sword. This is the formation treasure to use the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation. It's equivalent to the greedy wolf totem. Not only is the formation method of the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation engraved inside, but it's also the energy core of the military formation. Jojo casually took out 1,000 legendary tier mist cores and let the small God Sura sword carving in his hand absorb them all. After absorbing it, he saw the small God Sura sword carving emit a faint silver sword energy light. What surprised Jojo was that a portion of the sword chi emitted by the small God Sura sword could even shuttle back and forth in the space on his palm. It actually had the ability to penetrate space. An offensive God-tier army formation with the ability to tear through the air. These 100 points of proof of legion were well spent. An even more obvious smile appeared on Jojo's face. A moment later, the temple, in front of the ancestral altar. Jojo looked at the notification on the ancestral altar and requested him to offer 10 epic tier mist cores first. Jojo was stunned. It was actually not 10 legendary tier mist cores? Could it be that today was not the legendary tier ancestral blessing, accompanying the army as a national doctor? Previously, he would also come here on time every day and spend 10 legendary tier mist cores to obtain a legendary tier ancestral blessing. It followed the military national healer. Was there going to be a change today? Jojo was curious and took out 10 epic tier mist cores and placed them on them. Soon, a text notification appeared. You have obtained an ancestral blessing, Earthquake, Epic Tier War Enhancement. Earthquake, Extraordinary Tier War Enhancement. You will temporarily have a chance to use the law skill, Earthquake. You can release a level 10 earthquake that affects a radius of 100 kilometers at a designated location. There's actually a war enhancement that takes the initiative to be released. Jojo looked at the war enhancement in surprise. This was the first time he had seen this type of war enhancement. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 688 3 Orders. Jojo looked at the war enhancement thoughtfully. This war enhancement should have been given to him by Zhang Heng, the ancestor statue of the human race on Cerulean planet that he had just obtained. No wonder the ancestral blessing only sacrificed 10 epic tier mist cores this time. Jojo thought. This was because ancestor Zhang Heng's statue was at the epic tier. The mist core that his ancestral blessing needed to be sacrificed was naturally at the epic tier. Then, his gaze landed on the war enhancement itself. A magnitude 10 earthquake is no joke. Jojo muttered. One had to know that there had never been a magnitude 10 earthquake in the history of the human race on Earth, or the Cerulean planet. A magnitude 10 earthquake was already considered a huge earthquake. It was the upper limit of earthquakes on the Cerulean planet. If there was an earthquake stronger than a magnitude 10 earthquake, it could only be caused by a destructive meteorite impact or a large-scale superweapons war. Even in the extraordinary tier world of the High Continent, a level 10 earthquake should be quite terrifying. Jojo was very happy. This epic tier war enhancement was a little strong. However, it was good to be stronger. Moreover, it came at the right time. A moment later, outside Blazing Sun City, more than 47 million soldiers were gathered here. Linger, the Green Phoenix Lord, Nong Chunlin, the Gold Merchant Lord, the Paper Immortal Lord, and the other lords of the Star Alliance who had just rushed over with their troops were stunned when they saw this scene. Their eyes were filled with confusion. What was going on? It had only been a night since they last met. Where did this vast army come from? when they found out from Bai Yun that this army not only belonged to their emperor, but it also had nearly 500 million troops. Excluding them, they were completely shocked. 500 million troops. Their total population was only 1.4 billion. The army in front of him was actually comparable to more than a third of China's population. Linger had a proud expression. The Green Phoenix Lord had an incredulous expression. Ridiculous. The usually calm gold merchant lord could not help but ask. The paper immortal lord's mouth also widened adorably. After a long time, when the lords of the Star Alliance came back to their senses, they looked at each other and could see the excitement in each other's eyes. The unbelievable scene in front of him, it undoubtedly proved once again that choosing to join His Majesty, the Blazing Sun, was the right choice. At this moment, a figure flew over from afar and arrived in the sky. It was Zhou. There are so many people. Zhou looked at the more than 500 million soldiers below and could not help but click his tongue. With his eyesight as a chaos human, he could not see the end of the crowd. It could be seen how terrifying the sea of people in front of him was. He took a deep breath and began to give orders. Firstly, he would first arrange for these 450 million Black Iron Tier elementary grade recruits. Zhou ordered Bai Yun, Wuxia, and the other heroic generals who had mastered military morale to lead these recruits and 20 million veterans to the Night Empire on a galaxy to clean up the scarlet fog monsters around the territory of the Night Empire. More than 26 million soldiers of the Star Alliance followed. The galaxy was a special spaceship that represented friendship with the Machina race. Even though it was only a diamond-tier advanced-grade spaceship on the surface, however, its actual configuration was a low-tier deity-level god-tier spaceship. In particular, the low-tier deity-level elementary-grade folded space function inside gave the interior of the galaxy a small world. According to Wuxia, the galaxy had a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade folded space function. The life space contained in it could accommodate up to 1 billion humans working and living inside. It was naturally more than enough to accommodate 500 million soldiers. Zhou had a total of 10 of such spaceships with the help of his Lord Talent. The only pity was, Zhou could not build a galaxy spaceship manufacturing factory to make more galaxy spaceships, even with his current resources, because the configuration of the galaxy was too high. Fortunately, according to Wuxia, he could save up 2 galaxies from the god-tier materials that Vicky had brought him just now until he had enough. After Zhou gave the first order, he gave the second right on the heels of that. This second order was to get 10,000 extraordinary tier soldiers, 100 epic tier soldiers, 2 legendary tier soldiers, as well as the 2 god spirits, Heros and Zhewu, to bring the 10 Apocalypse satellite, 9 given to him by the ultimate Lord Zhou to the place where the Flame Scarlet Legion would pass through. They would use the Apocalypse satellite, 9 to kill them continuously. It would take at least a day until he, Zhou, completely eliminated all the other party's enemy forces. Zhou also planned to make a huge investment. 10 Apocalypse satellite, 9 had been used continuously for at least a day. The consumption of mist cores alone was not a small number after all. However, Zhou believed that everything was worth it. The loots dropped by the other party's death were enough for him to easily recover his capital. As for the third and last order, Zhou would personally lead the remaining 20 million elite troops to crusade against the Dark Martial Alliance. According to the Mystic Heaven Lord, after the Black Martial Lord gathered the forces of more than 1,000 lords in the Black Martial Alliance, there were already more than 6 million soldiers in the Black Martial Alliance's headquarters. The strength of the soldiers was about between Black Iron Tier and White Platinum Tier. There was not a single Diamond Tier or higher soldier. A soldier of this strength, not to mention Zhou, the more than 20 million veterans. Even if there were only more than 200,000 elite soldiers left in the entire country when the Aurora Kingdom was on the verge of destruction, it was enough to defeat it. There were almost no high-end combatants after all. In addition, Zhou's danger prediction did not give him a warning. Therefore, Zhou was not worried that something would happen to him on this trip. Let's go. The victory of today's battle will definitely belong to us. With Zhou's order, More than 500 million soldiers were sucked into the galaxy. In less than a moment, the place where there was a sea of people previously became empty. Zhou did not follow the veteran to the base of the Dark Martial Alliance. Instead, he followed the two god spirits, Heros and Zaiwu, to the location of the flame-refining Scarlet Army. With the galaxy's astonishing speed, in just 1,300th of a second, Zhou and the others realized that the spaceship had already arrived at its destination. As god spirits, Heros and Zaiwu's perception was very sharp. They stood up in shock immediately. What speed is this? The two gods were shocked. They could be considered gods who had seen some of the world. But at this moment, the two gods were still stunned by the speed of the galaxy. One had to know that this was pure speed, not spatial teleportation. The former was actually even harder to achieve than the latter. You don't have to be so surprised. The galaxy is actually a god-tier spaceship. It's the crystallization of the Machina race's technological wisdom. Its speed has already reached 50 billion kilometers an hour. It's normal to be able to do this. Zhou explained with a faint smile to the two gods. This was not a secret. There was nothing wrong with telling them. The two gods nodded. However, the shock on his face did not dissipate. Zhou's gaze landed on the scarlet ground below. The scarlet color was nothing else. They were the soldiers of the flame-refining Scarlet Army. They looked like a scarlet flowing curtain from a high place, since there were too many of them. A smile appeared on his face. His gaze was a little excited. There were more than 100 million scarlet soldiers. He had never activated insight defection on so many scarlet monsters. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 689 Battle. You too, do you want to take a walk with me? Zhou looked at the two god spirits Heros and Zaiwu. The two gods were stunned. It was as if they did not expect Zhou to make such a request. Heros laughed out loud in no time. How dare an epic tier kid like you go down there? I'm a high tier deity level expert with a full set of divine artifacts after all. Why wouldn't I dare? Heros suddenly stood up and looked at the flame-refining Scarlet Army below with burning eyes. He had long wanted to do something big since he obtained the divine outfit that Zhou lent him. Otherwise, he would be letting down the explosive god spirit venerable title of the god of blazing sun and burns. Zaiwu did not say anything, but he also stood up from his crawling position and looked at Zhou with his snow-white perverted eyes. Since you're willing, I'll tell you too. I just want to fight easily with the other party, and then come back. When the time comes, you must not fight. When they come near our blazing sun kingdom, we can fight them however we want. How about that? Sure. Heros and Zaiwu clearly had the same thoughts. They nodded readily. Zhou nodded and said, Wunya, Your Majesty, Wunya is here. The maid outfit quickly appeared in front of Zhou. I can release those 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9. Then, after we're done probing, you can control the crowd control Apocalypse Satellite 9 to kill the legendary tier fog monsters among them. Zhou said, Yes, Your Majesty, Wunya said respectfully. Then, countless codes flashed across her eyes as she silently controlled the 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9 in the arms warehouse to rise into the sky and disappear. Your Majesty, the 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9 has been upgraded to its predetermined orbit. The Apocalypse laser is ready. We can kill the legendary tier fog monsters below at any time. When you trailed off, Zhou nodded. Then, he did not waste any more time and asked Wunya to open the door of the spaceship. Then, he jumped down from the spaceship with Heros and Zaiwu and flew towards the flame-refining Scarlet Army 100 kilometers below. The human and two gods flew extremely quickly. In less than 10 seconds, they flew about 10 kilometers away from the flame-refining Scarlet Army. From this height, Zhou and the other two gods could even observe the hair on the scarlet soldiers below with their astonishing observation skills. Who? At this moment, a cold shout filled with coldness sounded. Then, a purple light soared into the sky from the flame-refining Scarlet Army below and headed straight for them. In the blink of an eye, it arrived not far in front of them. Zhou and the others looked over. This scarlet monster was wearing purple military armor. Its eyes were long and narrow. and there were two purple blades emitting a deep purple light on its hands. A cold and unholy aura emitted continuously from his body. An abyssal god spirit transformed into a fog existence. From the looks of it, it should be from the void spirit demon race. Zewu whispered. Zhou nodded. The information the other party gave him was a mid-tier deity-level advanced grade god spirit of the void spirit demon race. The void spirit demon race was good at spatial methods. They could fight and run. They were very difficult to deal with even in the abyss. Human race? There are also god spirits of the people of foreign races? Do you have a death wish? How dare you appear in front of our flame-refining Scarlet Army? Ostri looked at them coldly. Even though he sensed that one of their auras had already reached the high-tier deity level, however, with the backing of the flame-refining Scarlet Army and his superb escape ability, he was not afraid at all. You don't know him? Heros had a strange smile on his face as he pointed at Zhou. A tiny human and ant-like existence. Why should I know him? Ostri glanced at Zhou and sneered. Even though Zhou gave him a special feeling, humans were still humans. What was there to care about the weak humans? At the same time, he was also silently communicating with the experts in the army and asking them to come quickly and destroy the two god spirits and the human race from the people of foreign race. Even though the purpose of their trip was not them, there was no reason to let them go since they had encountered them. On the other side, Heros and Zewu shook their heads. They were clearly here for Zhou, but they actually did not recognize him. Fine. This was indeed in line with the arrogant personality of the abyssal demons. The man and the god looked at each other and instantly understood each other's thoughts. The next second, Zewu charged straight at Ostri, while Zhou used the mid-tier deity-level advanced grade divine artifact, Shadow Cloak, on him to enter an invisible state and disappear. Then, he charged straight at the army of the flame-refining Scarlet Army below. However, just as he was halfway there, a void spirit demon race Scarlet God Spirit that emitted the aura of a high-tier deity level flew over from below. A hiding human kid. The other party had clearly discovered Zhou's location. He raised his hand and launched an illusory blade-shaped attack that emitted sharp spatial fluctuations. Law skill spatial blade. It was as if he had teleported. The spatial blade had already arrived in front of Zhou as soon as it was released. At this moment, Zhou's heart suddenly rang with alarm. But he was not worried. The next second, a god spirit emitting blazing flames descended from the sky and blocked the spatial blade with a huge fire source shield of the low-tier deity level elementary grade. It was Heros. At that moment, he looked at him. His pair of fire pupils were as dazzling as two suns, and they were getting brighter and brighter. I've been waiting for this battle for a long time, he said in a low voice. It contained the madness and fighting spirit that had been suppressed for a long time. Whoosh! A flame divine axe that was as crystalline as fire glazed appeared in his hand. It was another low-tier deity level elementary grade divine artifact, the divine fire glazed axe. At the same time, all kinds of divine artifacts flashed on his body. He made a rough count. There were actually 5 to 6 of them. The other party's void spirit god spirit, Gerard, frowned slightly and looked at this guy with surprise. Who is this guy? Why are there so many divine artifacts? Could he be from a powerful divine system like the Sun Shrine of the Sun God system, or the Pantheon of the Elemental God system? One had to know that he only had one mid-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine artifact, and 2 low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifacts as a god spirit of the Crimson Kingdom. Even though the other party only had a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact on him, he had many divine artifacts. As the number of divine artifacts increased, actually, it could also make up for the difference in the level of the divine artifact. There was not much difference between a low-tier deity-level divine artifact and a mid-tier deity-level divine artifact after all. His expression turned solemn. He slowly took out his weapon, a gray hook sickle. Its entire body emitted an abyssal dark aura, making Heros' eyes flash with disgust. The two gods did not say anything else. They rushed towards each other and fought. The two gods, who were focused on the battle, were no longer in the mood to pay attention to Zhou. Chapter 690 Insight Defection. 27 million monster soldiers. Zhou did not stay idle to watch the battle. Instead, he put on the shadow cloak and continued to fly down. During the flight, he saw scarlet god spirits emitting the aura of god spirits fly past him and fly in the direction of Heraus and Zaiwu. There were a total of 4 of them. There was even a second high-tier deity-level scarlet god spirit among them. On the other scarlet god spirits, 2 of them emitted the aura of low-tier deity level, while the other emitted the aura of a mid-tier deity level. However, these scarlet god spirits did not notice him in the shadow cloak. The shadow cloak was a mid-tier deity level advanced grade divine artifact after all. Only a high-tier deity level or even higher level expert, or an anti-hidden law skill of the same level could see through its invisibility. These scarlet god spirits clearly could not do the above 2 points, so they could not discover Zhou. Soon, he turned invisible and flew about 10,000 meters above the flame-refining Scarlet Army. Then he did not attack immediately. Instead, he took out a scroll that emitted the aura of divine power. Scroll name: Guardian of the King of the Sky. Scroll grade: Mid-tier deity level advanced grade. Scroll effect: a law scroll made by the King of the Sky Malachus. Using the scroll, you can release a mid-tier deity level advanced grade law skill once. The Guardian of the King of the Sky. It protects the user for a minute and makes them immune to attacks below the mid-tier deity level. Moreover, it can withstand a full-strength attack from a high-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit. This was the loot that Zhou had extracted from a low-tier deity level enemy. Originally, it was only a low-tier deity level advanced grade law skill scroll, Sky Control. Later on, with the help of the King of Loots, he advanced to the Guardian of the King of the Sky. As long as Heraus and Zaiwu can stall those 2 high-tier deity levels, the effect of this scroll is enough to deal with other mid-tier deity level and low-tier deity level. If it really doesn't work, if a high-tier deity level Scarlet God Spirit appears, at most, it'll take a galaxy and fly away. Zhou thought. His internal world still stored the remaining galaxy spaceships. In front of the galaxy's terrifying flying speed, even a high-tier deity level would be inferior. At the thought of this, Zhou injected the chaotic origin energy in his body into the King of the Sky's Guardian scroll in his hand. Soon, after injecting about 60% of the chaotic origin energy in his body, this scroll suddenly emitted a faint green light. Then, the green light suddenly erupted, forming a green divine power ball that enveloped Zhou. On the green ball of divine power, there was a faint image of a divine bird with green feathers and purple eyes. It was the law skill, the Guardian of the King of the Sky. Seeing that he was already protected by the law skill, Zhou could not help but relax, feeling safe. Then, he removed the invisibility of the shadow cloak and exposed himself to the flame-refining Scarlet Army. Who? Human? How dare you? The moment Zhou appeared, he was discovered by the Scarlet experts in the billions of Scarlet Army below. Many Scarlet experts shouted angrily at Zhou. There were also some Scarlet experts who rushed out of the army with arms in their hands and charged at Zhou. They also began to cast spells and shoot arrows on the spot to attack Zhou. Who am I? Didn't you come here to look for me? Zhou looked at the Scarlet Fog monsters coldly. As soon as these words were spoken, all the Scarlet monsters were shocked. Then they smiled. He smiled sinisterly. Very good. Since you took the initiative to come up and have a death wish, it saves us from running over to look for you. A purple-robed succubus stuck out her slender forked tongue and licked her lips, her eyes filled with charm. From the aura on his body, he was also a mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit. I'll offer you to the Crimson Overlord. I'm sure the Crimson Overlord will be very satisfied. Perhaps it will give us a chance to step into a higher level. Attack! The Empire will give whoever captures the King of the Blazing Sun first a chance to become a high-tier deity level. He ordered. As soon as he finished speaking, all the fog monsters went crazy. That was a high-tier deity level. In this era where Master God tiers were high and mighty and true God tier, could not easily descend to the life-form world. High-tier deity level could be said to be the top powerhouses of the high continent. Who could resist this temptation? Therefore, at this moment, all the flying fog soldiers flew crazily in Zhou's direction. Even the fog monster soldiers who could not fly were all on the ground, releasing their attacks at Zhou. Facing these attacks, Zhou, the guardian of the King of the Sky, looked rather calm. He silently activated Earthquake. Just as he finished chanting in his heart, the next second, rumble, the ground began to tremble slightly. Regarding this tremble, at first, all the scarlet monsters did not care. After all, the tremors caused by billions of scarlet soldiers marching together were more than this. They realized that something was wrong in no time. Why is the ground shaking more and more? Earthquake. Why is there an earthquake at this time? The scarlet monsters on the ground were a little surprised. As for the fog monsters in the sky, they did not notice the situation on the ground at all. Their minds were only filled with the thought of killing Zhou in the sky. There's an earthquake? That's not right. There's something wrong with this earthquake. The mid-tier deity-level succubus god spirit also realized that something was wrong with this earthquake. But it was already too late. Rumble. It was as if a world annihilation divine dragon was rolling under the ground. A large area of the ground kept collapsing. Hundreds or thousands of fog monsters fell into the deep pit created by the collapse every second, either dead or injured. Countless underground water surged into the sky, killing countless fog monsters before they could react. 10,000-meter-long cracks kept appearing on the ground. A large number of fog monsters that had not mastered the ability to fly fell into these abyss rifts with terrified expressions and disappeared. All kinds of accompanying earthquake disasters appeared frequently at this moment, displaying the terrifying power of natural disasters to the life forms of the world. The fog monster soldiers of the refined flame Scarlet Legion were already standing very densely. At the moment of the earthquake, it directly killed dozens or even millions of monsters in this sudden earthquake. The succubus god spirit who had ordered the attack at the beginning was completely stunned. He never expected that they had already suffered such a huge loss before they even officially began their offensive. And all of this should have been brought by the King of the Blazing Sun. At the thought of this, he looked at Zhou with even more resentment. In the sky, the scarlet monster had already arrived in front of Zhou and launched all kinds of offensive attacks. However, in front of the guardian of the King of the Sky, these offensive attacks were directly immune to him and were no threat to him at all. Zhou ignored the ferocious expressions of the fog monsters outside the barrier. He raised his right hand and activated Insight Defection without hesitation. The next second, an invisible fluctuation instantly covered the billions of scarlet fog monsters. A text notification appeared. Prompt: you have activated your Lord's exclusive talent, Insight Defection. Insight Defection has taken effect. Lord Talent Notification. There are a total of 11,242,200 black iron tier fog monsters, 8,117,002 green bronze tier fog monsters, 4,001,632 white silver tier fog monsters, 2,149,660 yellow gold tier fog monsters, 11 white platinum tier fog monsters, 881,200 diamond tier fog monsters, 111,350 extraordinary tier fog monsters, 32,552 epic tier fog monsters, and 104 legendary tier fog monsters have betrayed their lord's faction and become your loyal subordinates. When Zhou saw these text notifications, he quickly calculated the results in his heart. Then, a smile appeared on his face. This Insight Defection had made a total of 27,807,373 fog monsters his subordinates. I didn't come all the way here in vain, he thought. Chapter 691 Sneak Attack. Zhou's confidence. Zhou looked at the remaining fog monsters of the Scarlet Legion and felt that it was a pity. His Insight Defection could only be used on the same enemy faction once a day. If only he could use the second Insight Defection on these fog monsters. Then he could have at least 20 million fog monster subordinates. However, the situation in front of him was not bad. Zhou was not greedy. By everyone. Zhou looked at the countless fog monsters outside the barrier and smiled. Then he planned to use spatial teleportation to escape. He had extremely high spatial talent to begin with, and he often used this skill. With the enhancement of his extremely high comprehension ability, he had already comprehended this law skill to the law skill level. Even though it was only an epic tier other law skill, it was equivalent to the law skill that Feng Luo had comprehended back then. One Blade Ultimate. However, it was more than enough in the face of the current situation. At this moment, a dark purple flying arrow that emitted the aura of a high-tier deity level instantly passed through space and shot at the king of the sky's guardian barrier. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the guardian barrier that protected Zhou, the king of the sky, exploded on the spot. A large amount of wind stats divine power and abyss divine power contained in it caused a terrifying explosion under the conflict. Rumble! An azure and dark purple explosion ripple instantly spread out with the barrier as the center. Wherever it passed, countless fog monsters below the legendary tier could not even let out a scream before they were instantly killed. Even their corpses were not left behind. Even the Scarlet God spirits who rushed over and were accidentally affected suffered some serious injuries when they were caught off guard. High up in the sky, a void spirit demon god spirit holding a dark blue ferocious bow slowly lowered its bow. The arrow just now was released by him, and he was one of the only 2 high-tier deity levels in the refined flame Scarlet Legion. I didn't expect a little worm to run over. And he's the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. What's this guy thinking? As the sovereign of a country and the favored one of the supreme will, you actually took a risk and ran to the most dangerous place on the battlefield. He shook his head. He did not understand. Could it be that this king of the Blazing Sun had walked too smoothly and was arrogant? Had he already begun to look down on god spirits like them? He did not think too much about it, let alone mind it. This was because he already knew that Zhou was an epic tier intermediate grade human through his aura. While the aura on his body was a little strange, the strength could not be faked. In his heart, the other party would definitely die with the arrows of attacks just now. Now that I've killed the king of the Blazing Sun, the Crimson Overlord should reward me, right? He began to fantasize. According to the Crimson Overlord's past style, it would definitely be rewarded with something for dealing a huge blow to the Supreme Will and fighting for the Crimson Overlord's face. As he thought, he looked at the center of the explosion where the king of the Blazing Sun was. As time passed, the divine power violent storm in the center of the explosion gradually dissipated, revealing the scene inside. And then, his pupils constricted slightly. That was because he actually didn't see the remains of the king of the Blazing Sun's corpse inside. That's impossible. I clearly restrained my strength just now. That abyss demon arrow could at most break through the wind stats divine power protective barrier protecting him and kill him. It's impossible to kill him until there's not a trace of him left. Thinking of this, he immediately flew to the center of the explosion. After he carefully observed it for a few seconds, his expression turned ugly. Spatial law skill. I actually let him escape. In the sky on a galaxy spaceship, Zhou sat calmly in the captain's exclusive seat and recalled the scene just now. That guy should be at least a high-tier deity-level intermediate grade Scarlet God Spirit. Otherwise, it would be impossible to directly break through my Sky King's guardian. It's indeed difficult to stop so many Scarlet God Spirits with just Heros and Zaiwu. Zhou shook his head. The reason why he boldly appeared in front of so many Scarlet Fog monsters, and even boldly exposed his identity to attract the hatred of the refined flame Scarlet Legion, was because other than a large pile of divine artifacts and other god-tier treasures, there was another very important reason. He now had a total of 9 resurrections with the professional ability of the Lord of the End. With so many resurrections, Zhou naturally had the capital to do whatever he wanted. Zhou even wanted to take the initiative to die and see what this resurrection effect was like. After all, if he revived with the power of the final nirvana, his strength would also increase greatly. Ever since he entered the epic tier, Zhou felt that it was increasingly difficult to increase his strength. There were at least 4 to 5 million fog monsters that had just died from the earthquake. However, Zhou felt that the promotion energy provided by these 4 to 5 million fog monsters only increased his epic tier intermediate grade strength by about 2 to 3 levels. The promotion energy provided by these 4 to 5 million fog monsters only increased his epic tier intermediate grade strength by about 2 to 3 levels. Not to mention legendary tier, and even god spirits. Therefore, if the power of the final nirvana could really increase his strength, he did not mind improving himself through death. It was just a pity, even if it was a high-tier deity-level existence. It did not force him to consume even one resurrection. Your Majesty, Lord Heras and Lord Zewu are back. They are walking towards the captain's room. At this moment, when Ya's voice sounded, Zhou nodded. Soon the two gods walked over. Heras' face was filled with excitement and a hint of depression. Zewu was also excited, but other than excitement, he was also a little worried. Are you two injured? Zhou asked with concern. With this divine artifact, even if I can't defeat it, it's easy for me to not be injured. Even though I've been suppressing that guy called Gerard, he's indeed an opponent I can fight. Heras was the first to speak. Then, he said helplessly. However, a group of scarlet god spirits rushed over later on. There was also another high-tier deity-level god spirit who interfered. Otherwise, I would have definitely decided a victor with he today. I fought 2 mid-tier deity levels and 2 low-tier deity levels alone with my divine artifacts. Zewu said solemnly. However, this fight as Scarlet Empire can't be underestimated. Even though we far exceed the other party in terms of low-level combat strength, I'm afraid it's very difficult to compare to the other party in terms of high-end combat strength at the god spirit level. This battle is not easy to fight. Zhou nodded. Then he smiled and said, You're right. However, if it really comes to the most dangerous moment, I'll ask the Elven Empire for help. With the Elven Empire's strength, it will definitely not be a problem to defeat this flame-refining Scarlet Army. Zewu was about to ask why he felt that he would definitely be able to invite the experts of the Elven Empire to help him resolve the current predicament. However, he quickly thought of Zhou's unfathomable wealth. That's true. With the divine artifact resources this guy has, even if he casually takes out a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact, it should be enough for the experts of the Elven Empire to take action and resolve the current crisis for him. After all, even the Elven Empire lacks divine artifacts. It's not difficult to defeat an ordinary Empire-level Scarlet Legion. Moreover, the Elven Empire seems to have heard rumors that Zhou has many divine artifacts recently. At this moment, they're probably thinking about how to get the King of the Blazing Sun to gift them a few divine artifacts. If this King of the Blazing Sun really asks the Elven Empire will probably agree without thinking for the sake of a divine artifact. Zewu thought to himself. He felt a little emotional. There was a proverb circulating in the Blazing Sun Kingdom from the King of the Blazing Sun. It was called Money Talks. From the looks of it, he could also allow God to drive under his command with a divine artifact. Chapter 692 Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Zhou, Heras, and Zewu chatted for a while. Then Zhou prepared to leave. Please continue to monitor the flame-refining Scarlet Army and protect the 10 Apocalypse Satellites 9 in the sky. If a powerhouse of the flame-refining Scarlet Army wants to fly up and destroy the Destruction Apocalypse Satellite 9, please take the galaxy immediately to the orbit of the Apocalypse Satellite 9 and move them. Then, change to a new place to continue releasing them to deal damage. This is called guerrilla tactics in our hometown. Zhou smiled. Leave it to us. When the two gods heard this, they felt that it was not difficult and immediately agreed. Zhou nodded. Then, he took out a galaxy from his inner world after bidding farewell to the two gods. Then, he boarded the galaxy and flew in the direction of the ancient teleportation array that the Mystic Heaven Lord had mentioned. On a plain about 50 million kilometers away from the Blazing Sun Kingdom, there was a temporary military stronghold here. At this moment, a group of people was gathered in front of the entrance of the military stronghold. They were Wu Tu, Mai Luan, and the other generals of the army, who had led their troops here in advance, as well as the nervous Mystic Heaven Lord, his subordinates, and the members of the alliance. They were Wu Tu, Mai Luan, and the other generals of the army, who had led their troops here in advance, as well as the nervous Lord of the Mystic Heaven, his subordinates, and the members of the alliance. It was as if he was a righteous cultivator, who had lived in a Taoist sect for a long time. He was righteous and innocent, and was willing to help others. Just his appearance gave people a good impression. Before Wu Tu and the others came, they had heard Zhou Zhou mention this person's aptitude and experience in the high continent. Now that he had seen him with his own eyes, he had to admit that he was indeed a Qi practitioner seed that was filled with an immortal aura. But it's still far inferior to His Majesty. Wu Tu looked at the Mystic Heaven Lord and muttered in his heart. If the Mystic Heaven Lord was a Qi practitioner seed, then he felt that His Majesty was a natural immortal king. The Mystic Heaven Lord was far inferior in terms of temperament and appearance. It could be said that they were on two completely different levels. It was even much inferior to the most handsome youth in their territory, Xiao Xian. At the same time, the Mystic Heaven Lord was also looking at Wu Tu and the others. The more he looked at them, the more he clicked his tongue. I've long heard that the subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom are all outstanding looking. It's true from the looks of it. The Mystic Heaven Lord sighed in his heart. Even though these people's appearances were not comparable to his, they could be considered outstanding among ordinary people. It made him want to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom now. Not for any other reason. He just wanted to see the upper limit of his appearance. He turned to look at the higher-ups of the Mystic Heaven City and the Alliance Master members of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Then he was speechless, because he realized that at this moment, these people were looking at Wu Tu and the others with infatuated eyes. Even some people with stronger self-control could not help but look at Wu Tu and the others from time to time. All of you, restrain yourselves. You have to pay attention to the image of our Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance outside. The Mystic Heaven Lord shouted secretly. It was too embarrassing. It was as if they had never seen handsome men and beautiful women before. Even though they had indeed never seen so many handsome men and beauties gathered together. At this moment, a huge shadow that covered the ground suddenly enveloped them. A series of exclamations suddenly came from the crowd. At the same time, they looked at the sky. The Mystic Heaven Lord was shocked. Then he immediately reacted and turned around to look at the sky. He saw a huge spaceship that was as gorgeous and resplendent as the Milky Way. It quietly floated in the sky, as if it had been parked there. The huge spaceship even completely covered the sun, causing the plane below to be completely enveloped by the shadow of the galaxy spaceship. Right on the heels of that, a handsome man in a luxurious dragon robe flew out. As soon as he appeared, it was as if it was the only light source in the world, attracting everyone's attention. Is that a god? A female lord looked at Zhou Zhou infatuatedly. The others also looked similarly obsessed. Even the Mystic Heaven Lord, who was quite confident in his appearance, looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. At the same time, Zhou Zhou looked down. When he saw Wu Tu and the others, he immediately turned into a golden light and flew down, arriving in front of everyone. Greetings, Your Majesty. Everyone said respectfully and fanatically. Zhou Zhou nodded and looked at the Mystic Heaven Lord and the others. You're the Mystic Heaven Lord, right? He walked in front of the Mystic Heaven Lord and suddenly smiled. He's even more handsome than in the video. He praised. The Mystic Heaven Lord came back to his senses. It's not as good as what if it's not as good as Your Majesty. The Mystic Heaven Lord lowered his head with a flushed face, feeling extremely embarrassed for his narcissism in the past. In front of such people with such peerless celestial appearance, how did he dare to say that he was the most handsome in the world in the past? Zhou Zhou smiled and did not harp on this topic. You're from Mystic Heaven City and the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance, right? Nice to meet you. am the king of the blazing sun kingdom. Everyone can call me the Lord of the blazing sun. He looked at the people behind the mystic heaven lord and greeted them. When everyone saw this, only then did he come back to his senses, and hurriedly replied to Zhou. After a few simple words, Zhou said, "There's no time to lose. Let's deal with the Dark Martial Alliance first." "Okay, let's set off now." The mystic heaven lord and the others immediately perked up, their expressions filled with excitement. Some people even had rich aggro in their eyes. Their mystic heaven immortal alliance had been fighting the Dark Martial Alliance for so long that a portion of them had long developed a blood feud. After that, everyone did not waste any more time and directly entered this military stronghold. Then, they used the ancient teleportation array here to head to the headquarters of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Headquarters base. When Zhou and the others arrived, he swept his gaze and saw the architectural style of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. He could not help but say in surprise, "The architectural style here is not bad." The architectural style of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance was clearly modeled after ancient buildings. Pavilions, pond pavilions, carved beams, and painted buildings could be seen everywhere. There were fake mountains, strange rocks, flower beds, and potted plants, decorated with vines and green bamboo. At the same time, it also had a rich xianxia factor. For example, Zhou had seen immortal cranes riding the wind just now. On the backs of the immortal cranes were chi practitioners who were dressed like immortals. Other than that, Zhou also acutely realized that there seemed to be some array formation here that was constantly gathering the promotion energy of the world towards the city. Even though he could not tell anything in the short term, as time passed, as long as nothing unexpected happened here, this place would sooner or later evolve into a blessed land. It's a little like a weakened version of the Essence Spirit Array, Zhou thought to himself. As long as your majesty likes it. I specially hired an architect from the Black Heaven sect to design this. Therefore, the architectural style is more inclined to the preferences of the chi practitioners. The Mystic Heaven Lord said politely. Zhou nodded. Then they first came to a reception room. After chatting for a while, the Mystic Heaven Lord began to introduce the Dark Martial Lord to Zhou. Chapter 693 The Resurrected Sun Extermination Association 1. After the Dark Martial Lord found out that His Majesty was going to attack them, he has been gathering the soldiers of the Lords under the Dark Martial Alliance. Just now, the information part of our Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance tells me that the Dark Martial Lord has gathered about 4,500 Lord soldiers. His total military strength has already reached about 8 million. It's said that he also paid a huge price to hire a few experts from the kingdom that hired him. However, they did a good job of keeping it a secret. Our intelligence personnel didn't get any information about it. The Mystic Heaven Lord said with a solemn expression. This Dark Martial Lord was clearly frightened by the reputation of the King of the Blazing Sun. In the past, he did not have the ability to gather so many soldiers. Now, it was obvious that he had the thought that he would probably die if he did not succeed. That was why he had tried his best to gather so many people. Zhou nodded casually. An expert? No matter how strong an expert was, they would still be from a kingdom-level lord faction. Unless a true god tier, or even stronger descend. Otherwise, Zhou would not be worried that there would be danger on this trip. The Mystic Heaven Lord heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Zhou's expression did not change. Then joy appeared on his face. As expected of the strongest lord of all races, who could defeat the kingdom's forces at this stage. This confidence was really enviable and desirable. When he thought about how he had also hitched a ride on the King of the Blazing Sun's ship, the thoughts in the depths of his heart that were subservient to others immediately dissipated. If I work hard alone and dig out my potential and my lord talent to the extreme, I'm afraid I won't be able to reach the heights of the King of the Blazing Sun in the future. I might not even be able to reach the heights of the spiritual medicine lord under his command. But if I follow the King of the Blazing Sun, Not only can I greatly guarantee my safety at this stage, but in the future, with the resources he has, as long as I assist him with all my might and not betray him, he will definitely support me with all his might, allowing me to easily reach the limit of my potential. It won't even be difficult for me to surpass the limit of my potential. If that's the case, what's the big deal about submitting to him? The mystic Heaven Lord thought, just as a certain internet celebrity on Earth said, on the street, I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz, and the other party is driving a little electric scooter. You're talking about dignity with me? How good was the king of the blazing sun to his subordinates? This could be seen from the group of Star Alliance masters, who flaunted on the World Channel every day how much benefits they had enjoyed, and how much their strength had increased after joining the Star Alliance. They were really showing off. It was not just talk. They even posted videos and screenshots every day. Some flashy lords even broadcasted the war scenes they experienced sometimes. These could not be faked. Therefore, many lords of the cerulean planet hoped to join the Star Alliance and have a winning career. There was a good saying, why work hard to carry others when there was someone to carry him? This was the thought of many lords who yearned to join the Star Alliance. There was only one lord of all races after all. Many lords knew their limits and knew that they could not fight for the position of lord of all races in the hands of so many abnormal lords. Since that was the case, why fight to the death? There was more than one choice in life. Therefore, many of them chose to rely on powerful lords. If they exclude the lords of the people of foreign races, the Lord of the Blazing Sun was undoubtedly the Lord of the Blazing Sun with the greatest potential from the cerulean planet. The Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the other top lords were very proud at the beginning. They even wanted to fight for the position of the Lord of all races. However, the Lord of the Blazing Sun appeared first, and came first in the Novice Lord test. Later on the Lord battlefield of all races, and in the competition with the lords of the people of foreign races. They realized the difference in strength and foundation between them and the lords of powerful race civilizations. After that, they learned that Zhou had suppressed the lords of all races and obtained the title of the strongest lord of all races. In the end, they learned of the existence of the Star Alliance. These things changed their original thoughts step by step. Until now, they could already willingly choose to join the King of the Blazing Sun. Speaking of which, how many lords does the Dark Martial Alliance have? Zhou asked. There are about 500,000 lord members of the cerulean planet in the Dark Martial Alliance. However, 99% of the lords are widely distributed in various regions of the High Continent. They can't send troops to help the Dark Martial Alliance when they need them. Not everyone can have an expedition spaceship like Your Majesty. Even if we want to build an ultra-long-distance teleportation array, we have to have that technology. Most of these lords who joined only want to wear the identity of a member of the Lord Alliance, and usually add the Lord Alliance to the chat group. At this point, the Mystic Heaven Lord could not help but smile bitterly. Wasn't his Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance the same? In fact, due to the traffic restrictions, most of the Lord Alliance of the cerulean planet lords experienced the same problem. There was no solution now. Therefore, Lord Alliances like the Star Alliance, where all the lords in the alliance could communicate and cooperate in reality, were envied by many Lord Alliances, even though there were very few of them. However, when the Dark Martial Lord was active in the Myriad Races Lord battlefield back then, he bought more than 20 Master Servant Subject territory contracts, and contracted more than 20 lords to become his subordinate territory. The other party used the teleportation array given by the Master Servant territory contract, and relied on these 20-odd lords of subordinate territory to contact more than 10,000 cerulean planet lords in reality. Most of these 8 million soldiers came from them. The Mystic Heaven Lord said. Zhou did not say anything. Actually, he could do this too. He could even contact dozens, or even hundreds of times more lords of the cerulean planet. He had hundreds of Master Servant territory contract lords under his command after all. However, he had no intention of continuing to recruit lords of the cerulean planet ever since he did not have the master-servant territory contract. Therefore, he had never done this. Ever since the Lord members of the Dark Martial Alliance found out that the Dark Martial Lord wanted to deal with your majesty, many lords have already left the Dark Martial Alliance. The lords who still dare to stay in the Black Martial Alliance and are willing to work for the Black Martial Lord are either threatened by the Black Martial Lord in reality, have a close benefit relationship with the Black Martial Lord, or are hostile to your majesty. The Mystic Heaven Lord said. Zhou nodded. Then, everyone chatted for a while. Then, Zhou stood up and looked at everyone in the meeting room. There's no time to lose. Let's go to Black Martial City, he said. Yes. Everyone stood up and replied. Black Martial City. The Black Martial Lord was sitting on the sofa in his room and looking at the virtual screen in front of him. On the virtual screen, a group chat was displayed. The name of this group chat was the Sun Extermination Association. A long time ago, the Sun Extermination Association had disappeared after the leaders who founded it were destroyed by Zhou. For some reason, it actually resurrected. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 694 The Resurrected Sun Extermination Association. 2. At this moment, the Black Martial Lord looked at the content of the chat group and occasionally typed. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. How's the preparation going? Our Dark Warrior hero. Black Martial Lord. I've already gathered more than 56 million soldiers of the Black Martial Alliance. This is already the limit of what I can gather. Dark Martial Lord. In addition, I spent a third of the wealth of the Dark Martial Alliance and invited 3 epic tier experts from the Roland Kingdom to help. Black Martial Lord. This is the first time I've grasped so much power. With my current strength, I should be able to defeat the King of the Blazing Sun, right? Evil Dragon Lord. More than 8 million soldiers and 3 epic tier experts? Good Lord. If I had your strength, I would have directly attacked the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of Water Chestnut Flower, don't be careless. We might have 8 million people, but we might not be able to win against the Lord of the Blazing Sun, even if we have the upper hand in numbers. We've gathered a lot of information about the King of the Blazing Sun's strength. That information is either incomplete or outdated from a long time ago. This information might no longer be trustworthy. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. That's right. From the fact that the King of the Blazing Sun can casually defeat an intermediate kingdom, while being a beginner kingdom, his military strength should be at least 10 million. There should be more than 3 extraordinary tier heroes. We can't underestimate him. Evil Dragon Lord. Can you change your group nickname? Do you want to become the Second Lord of the Blazing Sun so much that you've gone crazy? Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. How can a sparrow know the ambition of a swan? I will definitely replace him. Evil Dragon Lord, what swan? You're just a quail. How dare you call me a sparrow? Yen percent and percent. Dark Martial Lord. Why should I fight if you say so? Can you stop scolding and give me ideas? Black Martial Lord. Don't forget, I'm now representing the Sun Extermination Association to face the Lord of the Blazing Sun. This is a battle that will make our reputation known. As long as we succeed in this battle, our Sun Extermination Association's reputation will be established again. In the future, we will have the confidence to gather more forces to overthrow the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. You don't have much serious ability, but you're quite capable of tyrannizing others. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. In addition, forget about the Sun Extermination Association. The former Sun Extermination Association has already been destroyed. We only inherited the spirit of this organization, and were led by boss to rebuild the Sun Extermination Association. Lord of Water Chestnut Flowers. Why do I feel that we're dealing with the Great Demon King? Seeing the words sent by the Dark Martial Lord. Evil Dragon Lord. With the King of the Blazing Sun's terrifying strength, he's no different from a Great Demon King. Evil Dragon Lord, where's boss? At boss. Boss, I already know what you're worried about. Lord Dark Martial, do as I say next. Dark Martial Lord, good. I'm all ears, boss. Boss is still the most reliable. On the sofa, the Dark Martial Lord looked at the words sent by boss in the group chat. He was first stunned, then surprise suddenly appeared in his eyes. That's right. Why didn't I think of this? I'm so stupid. He immediately stood up impatiently and walked out. After Zhou and the others boarded the galaxy, they immediately flew above Black Martial City. The Mystic Heaven Lord and the others were shocked to discover that they were already above Dark Martial Arts City before they could react. I just got on the spaceship. The Mystic Heaven Lord looked at the scene below and could not help but be dumbfounded. He boldly looked up at the spaceship he was in. The more he looked at it, the more shocked he was. The technological creation in front of him was like an extremely exquisite work of art, attracting his attention. Until Zhou patted his shoulder. Stop looking. If you like it, you can come to my territory to take a look at it anytime in the future. No, I'll send you a normal spaceship in your territory later and let you drive it yourself for fun, he said. Since he had signed the contract book, he was considered half belonging to him, even though it was not the master-servant territory contract. What was a normal spaceship worth? The Mystic Heaven Lord's eyes widened. Fuck. Is this how rich people greeted each other? He carefully touched the shoulder that was just patted. This touch was worth a spaceship. Then he flew out of the galaxy with Zhou. As soon as he came out, the Mystic Heaven Lord realized that the 20 million soldiers Zhou had brought had already surrounded the entire Black Martial City. The sky, ground, and even the ground were already surrounded by soldiers. Not even a fly could fly out. There were quite a lot of transformation skills in this world after all. The soldiers had to be careful. The Mystic Heaven Lord looked at the 20 million soldiers and clicked his tongue at Zhou's strength. Then he looked at Black Martial City below. As he watched, he suddenly felt a little strange. Why was this Black Martial City so quiet? What about the 8 million soldiers of the Dark Martial Lord? This Black Martial City is almost empty. Only some abandoned, lonely old and young subjects are left. At this moment, Zhou seemed to have heard what he was thinking and said calmly. The Mystic Heaven Lord was stunned. A young general emitting an extraordinary tear aura flew up from below. Your Majesty, I've already brought people to check the entire Black Martial City. Other than 40,000 to 50,000 abandoned old people, children and women, the Black Martial Lord, his trusted aides and soldiers have all disappeared. Currently, we haven't discovered any arrangements like the spatial teleportation array. We haven't found out how the other party left yet. The young general said respectfully. Zhou frowned. This young general in front of him came from the original Aurora Kingdom and was best at searching and detection. With his investigation skills, he was ranked among the top in the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. But he actually didn't discover how the other party left? Did you find anything strange? Zhou said. We did discover some strange places. The young general was already prepared. I smelled a faint stench of insects in this Black Martial City. However, I didn't find that worm after following the stench. The stench of insects. Is there anything else? That's it. Zhou nodded. Could it be that the Dark Martial Lord was scared away? The Mystic Heaven Lord muttered. He felt that this was very likely. Was there anyone in the entire Cerulean planet who didn't know how terrifying the Lord of the Blazing Sun was? Even if the Dark Martial Lord had more than 8 million soldiers and the help of experts, the other party probably knew that they could not defeat the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Since that was the case, why would he stay to wait for death? He can't escape, Zhou said calmly. Then, he turned around and flew back into the galaxy. In the captain's room. After Zhou returned, he calmly sat on the throne and took out the Bodhi Supreme. Bodhi Supreme, what's going on with the Dark Martial Lord? Zhou asked directly. Trying to escape? Did you ask my Bodhi Supreme? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.